I always thought it was just me, lost in an endless sea of holiday cheer and family gatherings that felt more like obligations than celebrations. Picture a cozy living room, the aroma of spiced cider wafting through the air, twinkling lights reflecting in the eyes of my loved ones. It all seems so idyllic, right? But beneath all that warmth, I was often adrift, my heart a bit colder than the wintry breeze that would sometimes sneak through the drafty windows of our old house. I'm Emma, a 20-something trying to navigate the choppy waters of adulthood. For me, family gatherings were supposed to be joyful, but more often than not, they highlighted the gaps in my life, gaps that people seemed all too eager to fill with their unsolicited advice. Just be grateful for what you have, they would say with the kind of smiles that felt less like comfort and more like shackles. Each time, I nod, my heart sinking, wishing I could express that gratitude didn't mean forcing a smile nor accepting something that didn't resonate with my soul. This past holiday season was a culmination of those feelings, leading to an event that still swirls in my memory like the last remnants of a fire, flickering, crackling, and all too close to burning out. It was a gift, one wrapped in vibrant paper and adorned with a bow, yet it carried the weight of expectations I never asked for. While the room filled with laughter and stories, my fingers trembled just a bit as I peeled away the layers of wrapping, desperate to reveal not just the object inside but the underlying sentiment behind it. As the chaos of chatter and the crackle of the fireplace enveloped me, the moment felt thick with unsaid words and hidden truths. I looked around at the faces of my family, kind but often misunderstood, well-meaning yet sometimes thoughtless. That night, I realized that feeling grateful didn't always mean accepting gifts. Sometimes it meant acknowledging my own feelings, carving out space for my truth amid the noise of holiday cheer. And as the reality of that gift began to sink in, I knew something needed to change. I could almost hear the laughter cascading around me like a warm blanket, and for a fleeting moment, I was caught in the joy of being with my family. The twinkling lights danced in their reflections, illuminating the holiday spirit. But something shifted that evening as I held that small box in my hands. When I finally broke the seal and unwrapped the gift, my heart sank despite the smiles circling me. It was so clearly meant to be a heartfelt gesture, a vintage vinyl record of an artist I'd mentioned once in passing, one I hadn't even thought about in years. I forced a smile, murmurs of "you have to be grateful" floated around me, but inside, a quiet storm brewed. The gift was thoughtful in theory, it was just that I had never felt any connection to that artist. The songs often made me feel more isolated than understood, drenched in a sense of nostalgia I wasn't ready to embrace. Everyone around me was blissfully unaware of the weight that gift carried. My uncle, with his hearty laugh, had meant well, yet that unwrapped record felt like a chain rather than a token of love. As I placed it back in the box, I sensed a trembling inside me, a conflict swirling between family loyalty and honoring my own feelings. There was an awkward pause in the conversation, a slight hitch in the laughter that slid my way. It felt as if I was a query unanswered, an uninvited guest in a place where everybody else seemed to belong. In that moment, something unfurled within me. I could sense the edges of expectations urging me toward compliance, pushing me to invalidate my own feelings for the sake of gratitude. "Be grateful," they said, their expression sunny and bright, but my heart whispered a different truth, a beckoning towards something I never had the courage to articulate before. And just like that, the night shifted. Suddenly, the veneer of holiday cheer felt fragile, and the realization that I could express my own voice in a world that often drowned it out settled like a soft weight in my belly. I didn't want to simply nod and smile anymore. I wanted to figure out how to blend gratitude for the thought with honesty for my own heart. The path ahead looked foggy, filled with unfamiliar turns, but I sensed that a change was brewing, one that began with me daring to unwrap more than just gifts, but layers of myself, too. Days passed since that gathering, each one woven with a soft reminder that a shift was underway. I found myself standing at my kitchen window, a steaming cup of chamomile cradled in my hands, the warmth grounding me as I watched the world outside. A gentle drizzle pattered against the glass, mirroring a newfound rhythm within me, quiet yet insistent. It was as if the universe was whispering, giving me time to reflect and embrace this stirring desire for truth, my truth. At work, I felt different. Where once I hid behind light-hearted banter and easy laughter, I started to see through the charade. My colleague, Sarah, had been chatting animatedly about her recent promotion and the accompanying office celebrations. As she spoke, I felt the familiar knot in my stomach, a tug of envy marred with my attempts to celebrate her success. But instead of stifling my discomfort, I took a breath, permitting myself to feel it fully. "I'm really happy for you, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "But I also want to share that I've been feeling a bit lost in my own career path." Her eyes flickered with surprise, and then softened. "Thank you for sharing that with me," she replied, her tone becoming warm and inviting. And just like that, I realized it was a door opening, a moment of vulnerability that invited connection rather than distancing me. At home, the echoes of my thoughts lingered longer than before. I spent evenings in quiet contemplation, where my mind danced between memories of the past and hopes for the future. I would light a candle, let its soft flicker be my guide, as I sat in a nook of my living room. I still kept the other gift, the one wrapped with bright paper and bow that felt so wrong, on the shelf. It sat there, like an unwelcome visitor in my life, but now it was brewing something deeper within me, like an artist contemplating a blank canvas. One night, I picked up a notebook, the pages still crisp and inviting. What would it feel like to let the world see my true feelings? I scratched across the page. To my surprise, words poured out, spilling thoughts about gratitude and truth, about the clash between societal expectations and the rhythms of my heart. With each stroke of my pen, I peeled away the suffocating layers that had been tucked within, fears, disappointments, dreams that had yet to see the light. A few weeks later, I gathered my courage like a bouquet, driven not only by desire but by a newfound sense of self. The holiday season was blossoming fully, twinkling lights adorning the streets, yet instead of feeling drenched in joy, I felt a gentle yearning. I decided to return the gift that had been given in good faith but felt so misaligned with who I was, that awful sweater with its garish colors and scratchy texture, a gift that posed as something meaningful but had felt more like a shackle. Walking into that store, I felt a tremor of nerves dance through me. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, had crafted my acceptance of the returning process, each imagined scenario laced with trepidation. But as I approached the counter, a sense of calm washed over me. "Hi, I'd like to return this," I said gently, forcing a smile that felt real for the first time. The cashier nodded, the routine of returns unfurling around us, and as she processed it, I felt the weight ease from my shoulders. I was reclaiming a little piece of myself, stepping more deeply into the narrative of my own story. As I walked out, a sensation bloomed in my chest, a delicate fusion of lightness and empowerment. I didn't have to hide behind gifts I didn't want or sentimental obligations that blocked my voice. Instead, I could choose sincerity, even if that meant unsettling others. It was okay to stand firm in my feelings. The drizzling rain welcomed me back into the world, and each drop felt like a tiny celebration of this soft unraveling. That night, as I tucked myself into bed, the dim light flickering softly in my room, I realized it wasn't just about returning a sweater, it had become about returning to myself. As I closed my eyes, my heart whispered sweet promises of self-discovery and sincerity, beckoning me ahead to a journey I was now ready to embrace, layer by beautiful layer. I lay there in the cozy cocoon of my blankets, the kind that feels just right, and I started to sift through the day's events like a collection of photographs scattered across the floor of my mind. Each moment unfurled softly, inviting me to linger and reflect. Returning that sweater, an action I once thought of as merely practical, transformed into something much deeper, much richer. It was more than a simple transaction, it was a rebirth of my spirit. In the quiet of my room, I started to piece things together. So many times, I had accepted what others deemed valuable, gifts, expectations, ways of being, believing that gratitude was a shield to disguise my discomfort. The world often told me that I shouldn't rock the boat, that I should smile and say thank you even for gifts that felt like a shackle rather than a treasure. But tonight, with the rhythm of the rain serenading me, I recognized that true gratitude should feel expansive, not suffocating. I understood now that it's okay to cultivate a life filled with authenticity, to shed what doesn't serve my spirit, whether that's a poorly chosen gift or the weight of others' perceptions. I felt a flicker of excitement ignite inside me, a gentle reminder that my journey is uniquely mine to craft. The idea of prioritizing my own feelings, validating them rather than pushing them aside or disguising them as something they aren't, felt like stepping into sunlight after an endless stretch of shadow. As I snuggled deeper into my blankets, I remembered the faces of those who had offered me that lifeless sweater, their intentions woven from a fabric of care and love, albeit misguided. I didn't want to dismiss them, I simply wanted to step into my truth. I realized how liberating it could be to articulate my feelings, to be open with others about my preferences, and to invite them into the conversation. Maybe this act of honesty could foster a new understanding, not just for me but for them too. I wasn't merely returning an item, I was offering them a glimpse into my heart, a chance for connection. With the rain still pattering softly against the window, I embraced this newfound clarity. I could be grateful for the lessons wrapped up in those uncomfortable moments. Each lesson echoed with a question: Who am I beneath the weight of expectations? And the answer, slowly unfurling like the petals of a flower, was simple: I was becoming someone who valued honesty, someone whose voice mattered. With this resolution, I drifted into a serene sleep, wrapped in the warmth of possibilities. I felt like I was floating, open and free, ready to explore the shifting horizons of my heart, knowing that every step forward would bring me closer to who I was meant to be. And maybe, just maybe, I'd discover that it's not just about returning gifts but about embracing the profound beauty of myself, sewing it into the fabric of my everyday life, one gentle, intentional thread at a time. As the daylight broke through my window, a soft golden glow spilled into my room, painting everything in warm, hopeful hues. I stretched my limbs, relishing the weightlessness of my thoughts, the lightness in my heart. Today felt different, almost electric, a gentle crackle of possibility lingering in the air. I had awoken not just to a new day but to a new understanding of myself. I had spent so long tangled in the threads of other people's expectations, struggling to weave my own truth into the complex tapestry of relationships and obligations. But this clarity, this beautiful, tender clarity, seemed like an invitation, one that whispered softly to me, urging me to step into my own space. Standing in front of the mirror, I took a long look at my reflection. No longer did I see the eyes filled with doubt or the complexion dulled by fear. Instead, I saw someone awakening, someone ready to reclaim their narrative. A simple act, really, yet powerful. I reached for a crisp piece of paper and a pen, already feeling liberated by the act of creating my own list, one that didn't just say what I was grateful for but what I truly wanted to embrace moving forward. As the ink flowed effortlessly, so did my thoughts. Joy, peace, authenticity, all these words danced on the page like friends I had just invited to a gathering. There it was, my own guiding light illuminating the threads I wanted to weave into my life. I wasn't just bound to accept what I'd been given, I could choose to return the gift of fear and expectation and replace it with a vibrant tapestry of my own making. With a deep breath, I felt the weight of uncertainty melt away. It was invigorating, like breaking the surface after being underwater for too long. I could hear those echoes of doubt slowly fade into a calm symphony of self-acceptance. In that moment, I realized it wasn't just about returning the gifts that loomed over me, it was about reclaiming my joy and wrapping myself in it as a cozy blanket against the chill of the world. And so, with a smile softly touching my lips, I set my intentions not out of obligation, but from a place of love for myself. Today would be a step toward crafting a life that resonated with truth, one gentle stitch at a time. Each moment would become a thread, vibrant and intentional, creating something that reflected my heart, something worth embracing. As I stepped away from that lingering moment of realization, a gentle tide of relief washed over me. The decision wasn't simply about returning tangible items, it was a profound shift in how I viewed my relationship with myself and the people around me. I could almost hear the subtle whispers of encouragement, guiding my hand as I carefully repacked those so-called gifts, selecting each one with intention, unearthing layers of old expectations that never quite fit. Over the next few weeks, I felt lighter. With every item I returned, items that had morphed from tokens of love into shackles of obligation, I gradually let go of the gnawing guilt that clung to me like a shadow. My world began to fill with colors I hadn't noticed before, the deep greens of my garden tucked in the back corner, the vibrant laughter of friends who truly understood me, the scent of fresh coffee that lingered in my kitchen every morning. I had traded in the weight of unwarranted expectations for a soul-nourishing liberation. I found myself in the cozy corners of my life, focusing on the small things that brought me genuine joy. A late-night movie marathon with my favorite blanket, a spontaneous road trip to a neighboring town, and evenings spent in quiet solitude with a good book became my new treasures. I fostered connections with people who celebrated my quirks and passions, our conversations weaving together threads of honesty, support, and laughter. The road wasn't always smooth, and there were moments when the echoes of "Be Grateful" crept back into my mind. But I learned to recognize those whispers as remnants of an old story, gently reminding me that I had the power to rewrite my narrative. I would remind myself that gratitude thrives best when born from authenticity, not compulsion. Time wove its gentle magic, and as the seasons turned, I started to see the fruits of my labor. I discovered new hobbies that felt like extensions of myself: painting, hiking, even learning to play the ukulele. Each new experience was like laying another stitch in the quilt of my life, cozy and warm, wrapped around me as I ventured out into the world. In the end, I was grateful, not for the gifts I had returned, but for the journey that blossomed in their absence. Letting go had become an act of love towards myself, an embrace of my rightful place in the tapestry of life, a tapestry I was designing for my own heart. So, if someone asks about the gifts I once held, I will smile softly and say, I returned them, and what I received in return was far greater than I could have ever imagined. And in that acceptance, I found peace, realizing I could be both grateful and true to myself, crafting my narrative beautifully, one serene moment at a time. As I reflect on each thread I've woven, I understand now that gratitude isn't merely about accepting what's handed to us. It's about recognizing the beauty in our choices, the courage to create a life that feels authentically ours. Sometimes, the most precious gifts come from the act of letting go, and in that space, we discover the quiet strength to become who we were always meant to be. There's something about late-night moments when the world quiets down, when the soft glow of my desk lamp barely fights back the shadows that creep along my walls. I find comfort in the solitude, the gentle hum of my laptop providing a rhythm that makes it feel like I'm not completely alone. That's when I think back on how my life changed in ways I never anticipated, all because of a stolen idea and a fortuitous twist of fate. My office is a cozy enclave of mismatched furniture and the faint scent of stale coffee wafting through the air. It's a place where laughter often intertwines with the tapping of keyboards, where we share moments that range from jubilant celebrations to the occasional sigh of exasperation. I can still picture Anna, with her ever-present bright red lipstick and the way she effortlessly lights up the room with her laughter. And then there's Mark, who never met a deadline he couldn't push back just a little further. Often, his charm masks a deeper ambition, one that I learned to watch for, though I never expected to clash with it. I pour a cup of herbal tea, its warm aroma wrapping around me like a familiar embrace, and settle onto my couch, where the cushions sink softly beneath me. It's funny how positioning ourselves within our surroundings can make such a difference. The quiet hum of the evening cradles my thoughts, inviting them to spill out freely. In our shared office space, bound by our shared goals and aspirations, I felt safe until one day, the day everything changed. You see, I had an idea. A simple, honest moment born out of a late-night brainstorming session, and like a freshly bloomed flower, it brought with it the hope of a brighter future. My heart had swelled with excitement as I shared it with my colleagues, particularly with Mark. I wanted to be part of something bigger, something that would reflect not just my efforts, but the collective heartbeat of our team. But then, just days later, I watched in disbelief as he transformed my words into his own, parading it around as if it had bubbled up from his own genius. As I sit here listening to the distant sound of crickets chirping and the occasional rustle of leaves outside my window, I find myself reflecting on that moment of betrayal. But this isn't just a story of heartbreak, it's about resilience, about finding one's voice, even when it feels muffled. It's about realizing that sometimes the world doesn't play fair, and we have to seize our opportunities in ways we never imagined. So, let me take you on this journey of self-discovery, coincidence, and a dash of sweet, sweet revenge, as I unwittingly navigated my coworkers' ambitions while forging my own path. It was just another ordinary afternoon in the office, the buzz of coffee machines and quiet conversations creating a comfortable background hum. I remember settling into my usual corner desk, sunlight filtering through the blinds and casting soft stripes across my notepad. I'd been drafting what I genuinely believed could be a game changer for our upcoming project, a new strategy meant to boost our outreach efforts and, hopefully, our engagement. I had spent nights envisioning the details, perfecting every word, and it felt like I was walking on euphoric clouds as I prepared to share it with the team. I approached our weekly meeting with a heart full of excitement and nerves, ready to unveil my carefully crafted proposal. Little did I know that everything was about to shatter. As I stood at the front of the room, voice shaking and hands slightly trembling, my colleague Derek was just there, smiling, seemingly supportive, but I could feel a heaviness in the air as I shared my idea. I spoke passionately, weaving together every careful detail that had come from deep within me. But that spark of excitement dimmed almost instantly as I noticed something strange in Derek's eyes, a spark that felt far too predatory. Days later, in the same conference room, the atmosphere was light and bubbly as Derek eagerly shared his new idea. I could hardly keep the incredulity off my face as I listened to him lay out my proposal, turning my dreams into his shining achievement. The air felt thick, and the blood roared in my ears as I realized he was not just discussing an idea, he was essentially taking my heart and stampeding over it, wearing it like a badge of honor. In that moment, I felt my world shrink a little. I sat there, heart racing, amidst coworkers who nodded and clapped, unaware of the thievery happening right before their eyes. I remember staring at the polished boardroom table, tracing my fingers over the wood grain as if it could ground me. How could he do this? How could someone I once considered a friend, someone who shared coffee breaks and laughter, transform into someone so selfish? After the meeting, I walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and tried to breathe through the tightness in my chest. My mind felt like a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, anger, and then, ultimately, a number of resolve began to flicker deep within me. I might have felt small at that moment, but I wasn't finished yet. My ideas were mine, alive, and just waiting for the right opportunity to blossom. And so, as I took a deep breath, I realized that I didn't just want to reclaim my voice, I would rise from the ashes left by Derek's betrayal. The journey would require bravery, but in that quiet little moment, a soft understanding began to bloom. Maybe it was time to show everyone, especially myself, what I was truly capable of. As the weeks passed, the tension between Derek and me felt like a low hum in the air, always present but never addressed directly. It was strange how something so subtle could seep into my daily routine. I found myself stumbling through coffee breaks, filled with forced laughter and well-practiced smiles, while inside, my heart felt heavy, like I was cloaked in a thick fog each day. I began to notice small changes in myself. Mornings turned into rituals of quiet contemplation, where I would sip my coffee and watch the sunrise filter through my kitchen window, its gentle light causing the simple things, the cluttered counter, my small pot of medicinal basil, to feel a little bit special. I never expected to find solace in these small moments, yet they became the anchors in my troubled sea of thoughts. As I adjusted to this new resolve, my colleagues began to notice something different about me. I was speaking up more in meetings, proposing ideas with a newfound sense of confidence. I still heard whispers of the project I first pitched, Derek's project now, but instead of feeling deflated or dismissed, I found myself gathering ideas for my own. I started sketching out plans for a new initiative, one that could not only showcase my talents but also offer something fresh to our team. The spark of inspiration felt exhilarating, almost like the first breath of fresh air after a long undercurrent of frustration. Late nights at work morphed into quiet mornings of drafting and refining, a symphony of clicks on my keyboard as creativity flowed freely. I could feel the embers of my determination growing stronger each day, bright and alive. Then came that fateful day when my supervisor called an impromptu meeting. I remember gathering with my colleagues, the usual buzz of chatter overshadowed by an undercurrent of anticipation. It felt like something shifted in the atmosphere, a collective awareness of possibilities. And then, it happened. My supervisor acknowledged Derek's role in the previous project but then turned to me and said, "We also want to hear your ideas. What are your thoughts on pushing things forward?" In that fraction of a moment, I could feel my heart racing, but instead of fear, it was laced with a heady mix of excitement and clarity. I took a breath and shared my proposal, my vision unfurling before them like the petals of a flower awakening to the sun. I spoke elegantly, each word feeling substantial, no longer just an echo of someone else's thought. As I finished, there was a moment of silence in the room, a breath of unexpected recognition hung in the air. I dared to meet Derek's eyes, and the flash of surprise there made my heart flutter. Somewhere inside, I felt a wave of empathy for him. We were just two people navigating our own paths. But as his expression flickered from confusion to frustration, I realized this was no longer about him. This was my time. After the meeting, as I returned to my desk, I couldn't help but smile. A sense of calm washed over me, soothing the tattered edges of the turmoil I had felt the weeks before. The clouds had parted, and I could see my way ahead, a path that now felt brighter and clearer than it had before. I was reclaiming not just my ideas but also my sense of self. Each day that followed, I felt lighter, almost like I was wandering through a garden I finally recognized as my own. My work became a celebration of creativity, rather than a battle for recognition. Conversations with my coworkers flowed more easily, and I could laugh freely without that lingering taste of bitterness. I felt like I was building something gently within myself, one tender brick at a time. The universe has a way of taking the weight off the shoulders of those who learn to rise, I thought to myself one peaceful evening as I tucked away the papers filled with dreams and sketches of what could be. In the serene embrace of twilight, I realized that I wasn't just recovering from a betrayal, I was transforming within it, and I was starting to like this new version of myself. As I sat there, the soft glow of the setting sun filtering through my window, I let my thoughts wander back to that moment when I decided to take a stand for myself. It struck me how deeply I had been tied to the notion of validation, how I had let someone else's actions define my worth. It's funny, isn't it, how we often tether our self-esteem to the opinions of others, as if their acknowledgement somehow sweetens our own sense of achievement. But in doing so, I realized I had neglected something far more important, the relationship I had with myself. It dawned on me that I had always been searching for approval from my peers, feeling like I needed to prove my ideas were worthy right from the start. I craved that nod of recognition like it was the fuel for my fire. But now, I understood that true fulfillment doesn't come from accolades, it comes from the joy of the process, from creating something that speaks to your soul. I noticed how, after that initial burst of anger and disappointment, I started to revel in the freedom of simply being me, without the constant weight of comparison. Each project became a piece of me, not just a vehicle for praise. It was like discovering a new shade of color in my own personal palette, a soft whisper that said it's okay to stand confidently in my own light, without needing anyone else's approval to validate my brilliance. There was a comforting realization that washed over me: it's not always about what happens to us, but how we choose to respond. I had the ability to reclaim my narrative, not just for the sake of revenge or competition, but as a declaration of self-acceptance. I learned that I could walk into that office each day, not thinking about the credit I might receive, but rather about the contributions I wanted to make, sharing joy, ideas, and creativity, letting the experience be my reward. I found myself smiling at the little moments. Coffee breaks became a sanctuary, not a battlefield. I laughed more, took risks, made connections. And through all this, I started to cultivate a kind of resilience that felt utterly freeing. My coworker may have taken credit for my idea, but the beautiful irony was that he had inadvertently gifted me something far more valuable, a deeper understanding of what I was capable of when I leaned into my own power. It's funny how life nudges us, isn't it? Sometimes, it takes a stumble to find our footing. Now, I don't just feel empowered, I've become someone who celebrates others' contributions too, recognizing that every voice adds to the chorus of creativity. We've all got our battles, after all, and I'm learning that collaboration can spark even the brightest ideas. As the day drew to a close, I folded the pages of my work, filled with fresh inspiration, new dreams ready to take flight. This chapter may be just the beginning, but it's a beautiful one, and I'm excited for what's next. I can't wait to see how far my newfound sense of self will take me. Every step feels lighter now, and every idea a reflection of who I am, not just a desperate reach for approval. And with that, I lay down, feeling a profound sense of peace, knowing that I have finally anchored myself firmly in my own truth. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, I sank into my favorite corner of the couch, the soft fabric cradling me like a warm embrace. The day's events had wrapped around me like a comforting blanket, but there was still a flicker of tension deep within, a small knot of uncertainty that held on tightly. I closed my eyes and took a slow, deep breath. The world around me faded, replaced by the swirl of thoughts from earlier. The pressure to prove myself had always felt like a weight on my shoulders, driving me to chase recognition in the chaotic rhythm of corporate life. But tonight, something was different. Maybe it was the glint of possibility I'd discovered in collaboration, or the realization that validation doesn't solely come from others. In that stillness, the moment crystallized: if my coworker chose to take credit for my idea, that was his choice. I had the power to take control of my own narrative. I could either stay trapped in the past or step into a future where my thoughts, my creativity, could flourish without comparison or competition weighing them down. The decision unfolded in my mind like a blossoming flower, gentle and yet vibrant. I didn't need to claw my way to the top or disparage someone else's success to find my own. No, I could carve out my space and thrive, creating a path illuminated by my voice. I envisioned the promotion that awaited me, not as a trophy to be won at someone else's expense, but as a culmination of the respect and growth I was cultivating within myself and with my team. It was as if the breath I exhaled released all that resentment I had harbored, an emotional cleansing. I smiled softly, feeling lighter, almost buoyant. The air in the room felt fresh and alive, and on a whim, I opened my eyes to catch the twinkling stars beginning to emerge outside my window, each one a reminder of infinite possibilities. In that tranquil moment, I promised myself that I would no longer dwell on others' choices or their missteps. I would embrace my strength and the community I was beginning to forge around me. I leaned back into the couch, a wave of comfort washing over me, feeling at peace with my commitment to myself. I would be present as both a creator and a supporter, building a future shaped by shared brilliance rather than overshadowed by competitive shadows. So as I tucked the blanket neatly around my legs, I drifted into a soothing state of sleep, my heart light and steady, dreaming of a future infused with potential. The world felt right again, as if at last, I had chosen the path that was meant for me. As the weeks slipped by like pages turning softly in a well-loved book, I started to notice a shift in the atmosphere at work. At first, it felt as though a dense fog engulfed the office, lingering from that day when I had confronted my coworker about the idea he so casually claimed as his own. But gradually, the weight lifted. With my newfound clarity and confidence, I decided to channel my energy into my projects and support those around me. The lines of communication opened, and I felt more connected to my teammates. We began holding brainstorming sessions, fostering an environment where everyone's thoughts were valued. My reluctance to speak up melted away as I shared my ideas in these collaborative spaces, each contribution igniting fresh inspiration and laughter. One evening, just as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I received an unexpected email. My manager wanted to have a chat. I went in feeling a bit apprehensive but also curious about what was in store. To my delight, the meeting wasn't a reprimand or an acknowledgement of the prior incident. Instead, it blossomed into an invitation, a promotion offer based on my innovative contributions and newfound leadership skills. It seemed the hard work and sincerity I had poured into my projects didn't just shine through, they invited others to see my worth. Choosing to accept the promotion was a serene moment of clarity. It didn't feel like a victory taken at the expense of another, it felt like coming home. I knew I had earned it through my dedication and the genuine relationships I'd built. And with my promotion came an opportunity to advocate for my coworker too, helping him find his own voice and channel his potential beyond the shadows he had cast. While walking away from that meeting, a fierce calm settled within me. This was about more than titles or recognition, it was about crafting a culture where everyone could rise together. I found a deeper joy in helping my colleagues shine bright, creating a camaraderie that was soothing in its authenticity, just like the warmth of that blanket I cherished as I drifted off to sleep each night. So now, as I snuggle into my couch, overlaying the stalls of a bustling office behind me with peaceful dreams, I can confidently say that sometimes, a difficult moment can serve as a stepping stone toward an unexpected growth. The stars that twinkle outside my window no longer intimidate me with their vastness, instead, they remind me that with every struggle comes the chance to illuminate our own paths and lift others along with us. I close my eyes, feeling infinitely at peace with the journey, each star an emblem of the potential yet to unfold. And as I drift off, I realize that the shadows of competition fade when we choose to shine together. In the end, every struggle is just another lesson in finding light, both for ourselves and for those we uplift along the way. It was one of those quiet evenings, the kind that blankets the world in a gentle hush. The faint hum of streetlights outside my window mingled with the soft rustling of leaves dancing in the light breeze. I sat curled up on my sofa, a cozy throw draped over my lap, the warm glow of a lamp illuminating the pages of my journal. There's something remarkably soothing about those late-night hours, isn't there? A time when thoughts flow freely, and the heart feels brave enough to whisper its secrets. In the stillness, I couldn't help but think about Mia, my best friend since we were kids. We met in the dusty corners of the playground, bonding over shared dreams of exploring far-off places and shaky promises to always have each other's backs. Over the years, our lives became intertwined, filled with laughter, late-night talks, and the kind of loyalty that feels like a warm cup of tea on a rainy day. But lately, things took an odd turn. As I glanced across the room to the picture frames that captured our adventures, the camping trips, birthday celebrations, and lazy Sunday brunches, it struck me how those memories seemed slightly altered by our peculiar habit. You see, Mia had developed this tendency to mirror my every move. First, it was the way I styled my hair. She slowly adopted the same tousled bun I'd wear on our quick coffee runs. Then it morphed into clothing choices. The two of us were now sporting nearly identical outfits on most weekends. It didn't stop there. Even my taste in music had found its way into her playlists, and it left me feeling a swirl of confusion and unexpected hurt. I knew imitation could be a form of flattery, but this felt different. It strayed from admiration and edged into something that left me feeling, I don't know, oddly possessed. As I sipped my chamomile tea, I couldn't shake the heartache of watching this unfold. How did our story turn from a vibrant duet to something awash in uncertainty? And in that moment, the idea took root, a quiet test, perhaps? An experiment to see if my identity truly mattered to her, or if it was just a canvas for her own reflection. Yet, could I bear the thought of causing a rift in our bond? The night wore on, and I found myself trapped in the layers of our friendship, wondering if what was once warm and comforting had turned into something fragile. It was just an ordinary Thursday evening when it happened. I'd been so looking forward to our movie night, a little ritual we developed that brought brightness to our busy weeks. I had picked out this indie film that I thought would resonate with both of us. It was quirky and thoughtful, the kind that leaves you with questions long after the credits roll. I brewed some popcorn, tossed in a sprinkle of nutritional yeast, and set the cushions on the couch just so, a cozy nest for the two of us to sink into. When Holly arrived, Her energy was infectious as usual, and she plopped down beside me with her own snack. That was my first hint something felt off. Instead of her usual crisp chips, she had brought the very same popcorn, lightly salted this time. I laughed lightly, trying to brush it off, thinking, great minds have similar snack choices. But as we started the film, a nagging sensation crept in. Was she really so drawn to every little thing I loved that she was now mirroring my most mundane habits? As the plot unfolded, I caught glimpses of her, stealing quick sidelong looks at my reactions. She laughed when I laughed, sighed when I sighed, she even reached for my arm when a plot twist hit. The comforting intimacy of it all felt like warm sunlight on my skin, but then that familiar twist of doubt slithered in. With each shared gasp, I felt like I was sinking deeper into my own shadow. It was an uncomfortable dance, and the realization struck me hard. She wasn't just joining me in enjoyment, she was reflecting my every mood, as if she could only exist through my lens. After the credits rolled, I turned to her with a smile, but inside, my heart fluttered with uncertainty. "What did you think?" I asked, testing the waters. She paused, her bright eyes searching my face before she finally responded. "I loved it. Especially that part where..." And she began to recount my exact reaction, word for word. That was the uncomfortable nudge I needed. Instead of being lost in the moment, I was drawing up plans in my mind. Was I really willing to step carefully into this labyrinth of friendship? I felt a shifting beneath the surface, as if the ground was quaking at the thought of what might happen if I didn't stir the pot a little. And just like that, in the gentle, flickering light of the television, it dawned on me, I had to find a way to see if our friendship could withstand a little test, no matter how delicate that might make our fragile bond feel. I tucked the idea away as I washed the popcorn bowl, the steam rising like my swirling thoughts. Would it come to define us, or was there a path beyond this mirroring, deep enough for both our vibrant selves to be seen? Only time would tell. As days rolled on, the test formed like clouds in my mind, slowly gathering weight. I could sense my heart fluttering slightly at the thought. Each time I glanced over at Emma, who, without fail, wore the same outfit I did or styled her hair in a way that mirrored my own, I felt a strange mix of amusement and sadness. I didn't want to admit it, but a little part of me was shouting for acknowledgement, screaming for her to see that I was more than a reflection. I remember one Tuesday afternoon. It was just us, curled up in my living room, the ambient noise of a romantic comedy doling out its predictable quirks while we shared a pot of homemade chili. We'd decided to have a chili cook-off, but let's be real, we both knew my recipe was definitely the better one. As I pointed out the dash of cinnamon I had added, a little secret that made it just magical, Emma's eyes sparkled with that familiar glint of competition. Sure enough, the next day, her Instagram story boasted a bowl of chili that mirrored the same warmth and spice. Inside me, a tiny maze twisted. Was this charming? I wondered, or was it unsettling? I smiled outwardly, my best friend with her budding chef aspirations, and yet my insides began to unravel gently, like an old blanket pulled from a dusty closet. I wanted to indulge in the joy of being unique, of being seen, but here I was, playing the part of the backdrop in my own life. I decided it was time for phase 2 of my test, and it was almost laughable how I planned it out in my journal. I scribbled the rock concert. It was an event neither of us wanted to miss, one that promised lively beats, an electric charge in the air. The moment the tickets arrived, I made a small adjustment. I decided to take a friend from work instead. That night felt peculiar. I got ready with a bittersweet flutter in my chest. As I laced up my new boots, a deep shade of red that I'd almost regretted buying but had grown to love, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. Would Emma, seeing the concert photos later, decide to buy boots like mine? Perhaps. Maybe that was the shift I craved. I wanted her to stand out beside me, not behind me. When I got home that night, my heart was full of conflicting emotions. I felt buoyant from dancing and singing my heart out, but also a tad somber thinking about Emma's reaction. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, that wasn't ever my intention. I just wanted to feel my individuality. So, I sent her a quick message. "Hey! Went to the concert tonight. It was so much fun. You would have loved it." I chuckled internally about how borderline cruel it felt to send this. But I couldn't deny the wave of anticipation that followed. It was still gentle, like the whispers of a breeze on a warm day. Would she respond with excitement or withdraw feeling like she missed out? Later that night, her message buzzed in. "OMG. I can't believe you went without me. I had an event to go to, but let me guess, the band played your favorite song?" And even though I braced for it, the tiny pang of disappointment hit hard. It wasn't the excitement I'd hoped for, it felt like a mirror echoing back, the laughter quickly fading into a stale silence. The thought that she'd merely latch onto my joy, not for herself but as an extension of my experience, made me feel hollow. Days grew into weeks, and with each little test, I saw a fading of our shared laughter. My outings became slightly more solitary, I spent more time gardening or curling up with my books. And as much as I yearned for her affirmation, it seemed our friendship was veering off course. A distance blossomed quietly like wildflowers in spring, giving off both beauty and a hint of sorrow. Now, every time I flipped through my phone, a gallery of memories, moments, and colorful snippets of joy, I couldn't shake the familiar ache. I began to realize I didn't just want the same skin, I wanted to dig deeper. I wanted to explore the unique colors beneath ours, finding brilliance in both our canvases instead of using each other's as mere blueprints. And so, cradling the heartache and hope in equal measure, I finally gathered the courage to summon my thoughts, allowing them to ripple into the surface. What would emerge from this testing ground of friendship? Would it blossom into something more beautiful, or would we drift into shadows, frayed by the tides of unspoken emotions? The answer lingered, as soft and warm as the sultry evening breeze that whispered outside my window. As I sat quietly with my thoughts, the glow of evening casting gentle shadows in my room, I began to untangle the knots in my heart. The initial frustration I felt toward my friend, the irritation that she was mirroring my every move, started to shift. Instead of holding on to that angry thread, I started to see the tapestry of our friendship in a different light. What if her imitation was a kind of admiration? Maybe she wasn't trying to be a shadow of me, but rather a reflection of what she found beautiful, some vibrant aspect of me she desperately wanted to embrace for herself. That realization twisted the familiar discomfort into something tender. It reminded me that our connections are often much more complex than we assume. In the quiet moments that followed, I found myself thinking about my own motivations. Was I living authentically, or was I too preoccupied with the fear of being copied to explore my own muse? Maybe I had been seeking validation in the wrong places, differentiating myself at every turn when instead, I could have welcomed her enthusiasm. It illuminated a thought. Perhaps it's not about defining ourselves against others but rather celebrating the symphony of our shared experiences. I pondered on the gifts we brought into each other's lives, a blend of vibrant strokes that painted our shared canvas. The urge to compete faded, replaced by a desire to delve deeper into our distinct colors, our own dreams, and passions. What if we could embark on a journey together, learning from one another, building confidently on each other's strengths? I realized this wasn't just about her imitating me. It was about understanding our complexities as friends and beyond. I thought about how often I hurriedly wrapped myself in layers to protect my own uniqueness, and in doing so, I might have missed out on deeper connections. The idea of inviting vulnerability into our friendship felt liberating, even exhilarating. As I took a breath, surrendering my worries to the evening breeze, I found peace. Perhaps this wasn't a test at all but rather an invitation, to lean into our similarities, confront our insecurities, and discover how we might intertwine our stories in a way that strengthens us both. This realization unfurled in my heart like petals in spring, as I embraced the possibility of transformation. And I hoped, from the depths of my being, that when we finally spoke, it would be a conversation of love, a reminder that in a world where imitation often prevails, authenticity thrives when we give ourselves permission to bask in one another's light. Sitting on my porch, the soft glow of the setting sun wrapped around me like a warm blanket. The sky was a canvas of oranges and pinks, a gentle reminder that beauty exists even as day gives way to night. I could hear the rustling of leaves and the laughter of children playing in the distance. For a moment, I let everything else fade away. The tension of the last few weeks slipped off my shoulders, leaving me lighter, as if I could finally breathe after being underwater for too long. That's when it hit me, I didn't have to carry the weight of this friendship alone. All my worries about being a source of frustration or discontent within our dynamic seemed to evaporate into the evening air. It was easy to feel overwhelmed by what felt like so many mirrored surfaces, but now I understood, beneath it all, there was a heart, hers and mine, that craved connection just as desperately as the other. As I thought about how our paths had become entangled, I felt a wave of compassion wash over me. Sure, she'd been mimicking my choices, shadowing my moves, but hadn't I been just as guilty? Hadn't I urged her to embrace her individuality all while wrestling with my own insecurities? Maybe the reason I felt so stifled by her behavior was that it reminded me of the parts of myself I hadn't yet embraced. With a newfound sense of clarity blooming within me, I pictured us sitting across from each other, truth spilling out like delicious secrets. I could see us unlocking the door to our vulnerabilities, trading not just similarities but the very essence of who we were, stripped of competition and coated in acceptance. In that moment, I understood that this was more than just a friendship, it was a dance, and we were both stepping on each other's toes, trying to find our rhythm. I decided then that I would call her, and we would talk. Not the anxious conversation I had anticipated, not a confrontation or a declaration of my frustrations, but an embrace of our humanity, the part where we both could confess our fears of losing ourselves and one another while creating space to flourish side by side. As stars began to sprinkle the sky, I whispered a quiet affirmation to myself. I choose love, I thought. I choose understanding. Letting go of my need to control the narrative felt like a sweet release, like inhaling the fresh aroma of rain-soaked earth after a long drought. The path ahead, though uncertain, felt like an open road, one paved with the promise of deeper connections and genuine authenticity, waiting to be explored. Outcome: as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of lavender and gold, I finally dialed her number. My heart fluttered with anticipation, but I reminded myself to breathe. When she picked up, there was warmth in her voice that wrapped around me like a cozy blanket on a chilly evening. We started with casual chatter, which soon eased into our more serious hearts. I spoke openly about my feelings, the insecurities that had crept in as I watched her mimic my every whim. I shared my thoughts on individuality and how I had been grappling with the idea of losing a part of myself. Her silence after my words felt heavy, but not in a burdensome way. It was as if we were both gathering strength from the revelation of our vulnerabilities. To my surprise, she opened up too. She admitted that she often felt uneasy about her own identity and how she thought following my lead might help her find her footing. It was like watching an intricate piece of art being revealed in layers, each stroke uncovering her own struggles, her own fears. In that moment, I felt the tension dissolve, replaced by an understanding that brought us closer instead of pushing us apart. We spent hours talking, each confession weaving a fresh thread into our friendship quilt. The conversation took us down tangents about dreams we'd shelved, the thoughts we were too afraid to voice, and the essence of who we truly wanted to become. When we finally said our goodbyes, it felt less like a curtain call and more like the end of one act in a beautiful, unfolding story. In the days that followed, I noticed a tangible shift. Her choices became more defined and vibrant, colors popped that I hadn't recognized before. She started to express her own likes and dislikes more boldly, exploring new hobbies, and it felt like watching a flower bloom in slow motion. The first time she shared a style that was completely her own, it thrilled me and left me in awe. There was beauty in her individuality, and it didn't shadow mine, it harmonized beautifully with it, like a melody added to a symphony. As for me, I couldn't ignore how deeply freeing it felt to have that conversation. It gave us both the confidence to grow, together, yet apart. We ventured into new territory, embracing our differences rather than finding competition in them. Now, as I lie in bed recalling this journey, a peaceful calm envelops me. I realize that our friendship has transformed beautifully, no longer two shadows trying to merge but rather a dance of light and color, celebrating our unique rhythms. We've learned to step in sync while still being truly ourselves, and I am grateful for that test, that simple leap into vulnerability, which proved to be an unparalleled gift. Tomorrow isn't just another day, it's an invitation to blossom even further, hand in hand, hearts open wide. In this quiet moment, I find solace in knowing that sometimes, it takes a little challenge to unveil the true beauty of connection. We thrive not just in similarity, but in the gentle embrace of our differences. Tomorrow awaits, not as a competition, but as a canvas for us to paint our own stories, side by side. There's something almost serene about the stillness of a quiet evening, isn't there? The way the sky softens into deep shades of indigo, the world around me whispering secrets as the day surrenders to night. I often find solace in this time, curled up in my favorite armchair by the window, basking in the gentle glow of the lamp beside me. Outside, the familiar sounds of our neighborhood drift in, the rustle of leaves, the soft crooning of night insects, and the occasional laughter from children playing just a little too late. My little corner of the world is an unassuming cul-de-sac, where houses are cozily nestled together and neighbors exchange greetings like old friends. I've lived here for just over 5 years, and in that time, I've developed a soft spot for these surroundings, the scratchy but comforting embrace of the carpet beneath my feet, the mismatched chairs gathered around the dinner table, and even the faint, inviting aroma of lasagna wafting from the house next door. Speaking of neighbors, there's Nathan. He lives just across the street, a guy in his early 40s with a penchant for loud music and an unfortunate tendency to park in my driveway. I suppose I should start by saying that I'm not the type to make waves. I prefer a quiet existence, where tranquility reigns and I can enjoy my evenings without fuss. But Nathan, bless his heart, has a way of pushing my buttons with his carelessness. At first, it was an occasional annoyance, his car encroaching on my space, taking up the personal sanctuary I'd built. But over time, those moments grew into small mountains of irritation, like pebbles in my shoe. I'd always tried to approach life with grace, seeking solutions rather than creating conflict. I imagined a day would come when I could politely ask him to be more considerate, but the thought often dissolved in the face of my own hesitation. So, there I was, caught in a blur of frustration and resignation, pondering how to reclaim my little patch of peace. And then one fateful summer night, with the moon quite literally hanging heavy and full in the sky, I made a decision that would change everything between us. It had been a long day, the kind that wraps around you like a warm blanket, but inside, I was feeling a simmering restlessness. After finally finishing a project that had taken longer than I had hoped, I stepped onto my small front porch to enjoy the cool evening breeze. I took a deep breath, letting the day peel away, when I noticed it, that familiar, infuriating sight. My neighbor's car was parked slap dab in the middle of my driveway again. The taillights glowed innocently in the dusk, mocking me. It was almost as if the universe was playing a practical joke, reminding me of my own inability to voice my needs. I felt my heart drop a little. It wasn't purely about the car, it was everything surrounding it. It represented a breach of trust, an unspoken understanding that we were supposed to respect each other's space. As I stood there, staring at the wayward vehicle, I remembered the last time I had tried to address it. It was one of those awkward moments at the mailbox, where I'd awkwardly laughed it off when I saw him unloading groceries. "You're parked in my driveway again," I had said lightly, hoping he'd pick up on the hint. But he had just chuckled like it was the funniest thing in the world and waved me off, completely unaware of the irritation brewing inside me. This was getting old. My sanctuary felt less like a safe haven, and more like a battleground with every inch of space being contested. I could almost hear the tiny pebbles of frustration tumbling around in my heart, each clatter echoing louder than the last. So, there I was, wrapped in the embrace of that summer night, staring at a car that wasn't mine. And in that moment, under the canopy of stars, a tiny flicker of spontaneity ignited within me. What if, just for once, I took a bold step? What if I didn't wait for a polite opportunity or the right words to unravel this tangled thread? The decision felt wild and liberating, as I turned back towards my own driveway, imagining the possibilities. I could simply block him in. The audacity of it thrilled me as the idea rushed through like a burst of wind. Would that be the push he needed to finally get the message? The thought danced in my mind, and before I knew it, I felt that weighty tension easing just a little. Perhaps tonight, I'd find both my peace and my voice. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I maneuvered my car purposefully, the tires crunching lightly over the gravel as I slid into my driveway, making sure to park just snugly enough behind my neighbor's modest sedan. At first, a thrill coursed through me, the audacity of a silent protest, the sweet taste of small victories. It was almost poetic, I thought, two cars in a quiet standoff, challenging each other in an unspoken duel. But as the evening wore on, I found it harder to bask in my mini rebellion. Around me, life hummed softly. The distant sound of laughter drifted through open windows, and the scent of barbecues wafted on the gentle breeze. I could hear children playing, their laughter mingling with the soft chirps of evening crickets. Yet, in stark contrast, my heart burgeoned with a strange cocktail of satisfaction and guilt. Was my playful retaliation really necessary? The first night passed uneventfully. I curled up on the couch with my favorite book, the steely resolve in my heart slowly simmering down to a gentle warmth. I felt liberated, yes, but as I read, I couldn't help stealing glances at that somber sedan from my window. The world outside continued to spin, yet I was trapped in this space of unresolved tension. That night, as the shadows stretched long and the twilight deepened, the glow of my neighbor's porch light flickered like my own thoughts. Did I really want to escalate this? My love for serenity begged for resolution, but the stubborn spark whispered that I had to stand my ground. Days drifted by, each morning starting with that familiar knot tightening in my stomach. I'd watch from my window as other neighbors waved cheerfully, whispering greetings that felt all too delicate in contrast to my quiet turmoil. Each time I'd step out, my eyes would shift instinctively to the driveway. There it was, my uninvited guest. I couldn't quite shake the hissing frustration. On a Tuesday evening, I stepped outside to grab the mail. The air buzzed faintly with the scent of blooming jasmine. As I walked past my neighbor's car, an unexpected pang tugged at my heartstrings. What about his own solitude? Did he feel just as trapped in this cycle of unspoken grievances? My heart softened, and I found myself questioning whether my tiny act of defiance had morphed into something of a petty grudge. I returned to the warmth of my home, the weight of discontent heavy on my shoulders. I prepared dinner, the familiar rhythm of slicing vegetables soothing my ruminating mind, but at every chop, the crunch felt louder, like an echo of what was left unsaid. By the end of the week, I was weary, midnight thoughts turned into early morning worries. I wondered if I could still reclaim my peaceful mornings without straining the fragile fabric of our neighborly ties. Each day, I felt more as if I were walking a tightrope, balancing my needs against a desire to reach out. Accusation and resolution twisted together like the roots of a vine, and the peaceful distance I'd cherished suddenly seemed steeped in a sorrowful silence. And there it was again. The thought of communication fluttered through the murky depths of my mind. Wouldn't a simple conversation be more nourishing than this silent barricade I'd constructed? I could be the grown-up here. I could make the first move. With each sunrise, I felt the chill of the old tension start to thaw. Maybe blocking him in was just the start, a way to nudge us both toward a conversation, to push against the walls we each built. Somewhere beneath that stubbornness was an olive branch, waiting to unfurl. I sensed it, glowing softly in the back of my thoughts. Wasn't peace, in the end, worth pursuing? As I sat on my porch one morning, a warm breeze brushing against my skin like an unspoken apology, I began to unravel the cocoon of my own negativity. Blocking him in had felt empowering in the moment, a sense of control that had eluded me for too long. But now, the thrill of that small act of rebellion faded, revealing a deeper truth. I was trapped in my own perception of the world around me. Really pondering it, a wave of clarity washed over me. This little man, my neighbor, had never been a monster, he was simply a flawed human being, just like me. Maybe he had sloppily parked out of rush or stubbornness. Maybe there was chaos in his life I couldn't see. And in my desperate need to protect my space, I had painted him as the villain in a story where I could have just been the protagonist seeking understanding. A thought crossed my mind, simple yet profound: how often had I missed the chance to see the world through another's eyes? The realization settled softly in my chest, warming the cold edges of my frustration. It dawned on me that what I wanted most wasn't just an empty driveway, it was connection and understanding. The irony didn't escape me. I had sought to reclaim my space but, in the process, had built another wall. I wanted peace, yet I was contributing to the tension, all because I had been too proud to meet him halfway. So there I was, sipping coffee as the sun pried open the horizon, the shadows of our misunderstandings loosening their grip. The change in my heart seemed so simple yet profoundly rich. I could be brave enough to extend that olive branch. The thought filled me with a gentle courage. I imagined approaching him, sharing a laugh over our miscommunication, shaking hands as neighbors, two flawed individuals navigating this beautiful, messy life together. I wanted that calmness in my heart, the relief of having the air cleared between us. I wanted the buzz of friendship that thrived on shared laughter, not conflict rooted in misunderstanding. And so, I decided to let go of bitterness in favor of connection and growth. As the day unfolded, I felt lighter, as if the dark clouds of animosity had drifted away, making space for a fresh start. I realized it wasn't just about a driveway anymore, it was about bridging the gap between two hearts, crafting a little harmony in the dissonance. I smiled to myself, full of hope. Maybe today would be the day I let that new chapter begin. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over everything, and I could feel a gentle breeze brushing against my skin as I stood on my porch, looking toward my neighbor's SUV parked in my driveway. It was a small thing, but somehow, it felt so monumental, a moment brimming with opportunity. As I took a deep breath, the weight of my frustration slowly melted away. All the nights I'd spent stewing over parking violations, all that irritation seemed to evaporate in that early evening light. My neighbor wasn't just a faceless annoyance, he was a fellow traveler, navigating life alongside me, perhaps as lost and confused as I sometimes felt. I envisioned standing there, the air between us shifting from tension to understanding. Picture this, me, walking across the grass, the soft crunch of the blades beneath my feet grounding me. The sight of his smile, yes, I could see it now, a look of surprise followed by that same warmth I'd imagined earlier. "Hey, we should talk about this," I'd say. No blame, no judgment, just a simple acknowledgement of our shared space. I could feel my heart quickening, not out of anxiety, but with excitement. In that moment of clarity, I realized that I wasn't just working towards a solution, I was embarking on a small adventure. Imagine crafting a bond instead of building a wall. My hands spontaneously relaxed at my sides, the tension in my shoulders dissipating. I was stepping back from the urge to react with anger and embracing the peaceful prospect of connection. With every inhale, I felt lighter. Tomorrow, I whispered to myself, as if both a promise and an invitation. Tomorrow, I'd approach him with kindness, not confrontation. I would set the stage for a one-on-one dialogue that could redefine what it meant to be neighbors. It didn't have to be perfect, but it could be real. The prospect of sharing a laugh wasn't just a distant daydream anymore, it felt tangible, waiting for me just around the corner. As the sky deepened into indigo, I knew that I was choosing peace over resentment. And somehow, that decision felt as freeing as the gentle wind brushing through the leaves overhead, a reminder that life has a way of revealing brighter paths if we're brave enough to seek them out. My heart swelled with the notion of a fresh start, a chance to rewrite the narrative of our little corner of the world. Just like that, the weight had lifted, and I could finally breathe deeply, embracing the serenity of the choice I had made. Outcome: the next morning arrived wrapped in the soft glow of dawn, the world outside my window slowly awakening, as if holding its breath in anticipation. I stood at the edge of my driveway, the grass still heavy with dew beneath my bare feet, and glanced over at my neighbor's house. I felt a gentle surge of hope that perhaps this could be the day things shifted between us. Not long after, I heard the familiar sound of tires crunching over the gravel, and there he was, Jake. I watched as his expression morphed from confusion to realization. I opened my door and stepped outside, heart pounding but resolute, ready to exchange the unfamiliar tension in the air for the warmth of conversation. Jake approached me slowly. I could see the uncertainty written across his face but also something softer, a flicker of humility. "Hey," he started, his voice cautiously sincere. "I guess I overstepped a bit." With a small smile, I replied, "You think? But look, I know life gets busy. I just wanted to talk about the driveway thing. It's really about respect for each other's space, don't you think?" He nodded, his shoulders relaxing just a touch. I offered up my own frustrations, articulating how isolated it had been to feel disregarded, while also acknowledging how easy it can be to overlook the small stuff in our busy lives. For what felt like hours, though in reality it was just a conversation stretched across the morning sun, we stood there, bridging the gap that had formed between us. We shared stories, our laughter mingling awkwardly at first but gradually feeling more natural, like long-lost friends rediscovering a shared reality. I learned about his hectic schedule and some of the struggles he faced, while he listened as I recounted my own challenges. As we wrapped up our talk, a soft breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it the unmistakable promise of new beginnings. I could see a change in Jake. He seemed lighter, and as though the weight of misunderstanding had lifted from his shoulders. He thanked me for being upfront, and just like that, the dissonance between us transformed into something more harmonious. "I really appreciate you talking to me," he said, a genuine warmth in his tone. "Let's be better neighbors." With that, I watched him drive away, a smile lingering on my lips. Maybe it had taken a parking fiasco to bring us to this moment, but in that serendipitous way life often plays out, I felt a renewed sense of connection, not just with Jake but the world around me. As I headed back inside, I felt lighter myself, as if I had shed more than just my frustrations. I knew that the path to neighborliness wouldn't always be smooth, but anticipating future conversations didn't feel daunting anymore. It felt like an embrace, gentle and inviting, with the promise of shared understanding just around the bend. With that thought in mind, I settled into my favorite chair, the stillness of the morning wrapping around me like a warm blanket. I would find joy in these small victories, knowing that sometimes, the simplest act of reaching out can lead to connections richer than we ever imagined. And as I sipped my coffee, I realized that sometimes a little confrontation can spark a connection, turning tension into tenderness. Life's little nuisances often pave the way for the sweetest relationships, reminding us that every moment holds the potential for empathy, if only we take the time to see it. The clock on the wall ticks softly, marking each second as I sit on the edge of my bed, the warm glow of my bedside lamp wrapping the room in a gentle embrace. It's one of those evenings where the air feels thick with possibilities, and I can hear faint music filtering through the open window, a nostalgic tune that's become the soundtrack to my life lately. I'm Sam, a 20-something navigating the bustling streets of the city with wide-eyed wonder and an ever-tingling sense of hope. Just last week, I stumbled upon my dream apartment. The kind with sun-drenched mornings and cozy corners that seem to breathe in sync with you. It's a quirky little place, drenched in character, with pale blue walls and wooden beams that creak underfoot, like old friends whispering secrets. The moment I stepped inside, I could almost hear the echoes of laughter and heart-to-heart conversations that might fill the rooms. It felt like coming home. My roommate, Mia, is the sunshine to my quiet storm. We met during our freshman year of college, two lost souls in a sea of unfamiliar faces. With her vibrant laugh and endless optimism, she is the kind of person who makes even the blandest of days feel alive. I can hardly imagine my life without her quick wit and reassuring presence. She's currently finishing a late shift at the cafe, her favorite place in the world, filled with the scent of fresh pastries and brewing coffee, the kind of nostalgic aroma that makes you feel completely wrapped in love. And here I am, cradling this big secret in my chest, grateful for the fortune that has found its way to me, yet tangled in the awkwardness of not knowing how, or even if, I should tell her. Should I tell Mia about the apartment? About my silent thrill each time I picture the two of us curling up on that sun-drenched sofa with a movie playing in the background? Or will sharing this moment of serendipity shatter our delicate balance, like dropping a fragile glass ornament? As I listen to the distant sounds of the city, a car horn blaring, a couple laughing under the streetlights, my heart feels heavy with this concealed joy. I know that bedtime confessions often weigh on the soul in the softest of ways, and tonight, I'm left wondering if keeping this secret is truly the right choice. It was an ordinary Thursday evening when that small shift changed everything for me. Mia and I had just come back from one of our favorite haunts, that cozy little cafe around the corner. We'd beamed with laughter over steaming mugs of herbal tea, sharing silly stories about our day. It felt perfect, like the world was just right, no cracks in our little universe. But as we stepped into our apartment, that familiar warmth began to twist into something else. I tossed the keys on the counter while Mia wandered to the living room, her eyes scanning the scruffy couch we'd somehow grown fond of, with its frayed edges and the way it swallowed us both whole when we watched movies. It was homey, I suppose, comfort wrapped in a chaotic sort of charm. But then, just as I was gathering the strength to broach my secret, Mia plopped down, letting out a dramatic sigh that filled the room. "Do you ever feel like we're just stuck?" she asked, her voice laced with a quiet sadness. "This place is cozy, but sometimes I just wish." She trailed off, lost in thought. I could see the weight of her words hanging in the air, drifting over to me like soft clouds, and my heart squeezed painfully. "Like what?" I nudged gently, not wanting to pull her further from that moment. "I don't know," she said, running her fingers through her hair. "I want a place that feels like us. You know? Somewhere we can really grow." In that instant, it hit me like a soft wave lapping at the shore. Here she was, feeling small in our cramped space, while I was quietly cradling my dream apartment down in the heart of the city, a place where sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows and tree branches swayed in the breeze like they were dancing. It should have been easy for me to share the joy with her, to invite her into that dream. But her words reminded me of the things I couldn't yet give her, the life we hadn't really talked about. "Yeah, I know what you mean," I murmured, forcing a smile, though inside everything was spinning in a muddled rush. There was a deep, echoing chasm between our thoughts, and it left me feeling like I was standing on a tightrope, balancing my unspoken dreams against the reality of the moment. As I settled next to her, silence wrapped us like a warm blanket, but my heart raced. The small secret tucked away in my mind felt heavier now, pressing against my ribs like it wanted to escape. Did I owe it to her to share my happiness? Or was I simply prolonging her discontent? Suddenly, home didn't feel so cozy anymore, it felt like a fragile bubble waiting to pop. Days turned into weeks, and with each sunrise, my little secret felt more like a weight than a treasure. I'd slip past my roommate, Emma, in the mornings, her golden hair spilling over the pillows, blissfully unaware as I masked my excitement with routine. I'd splash cold water on my face, trying to wipe away the guilt that clung like a stubborn shadow, tainting my morning rituals. Sometimes, while brewing coffee, I'd catch her gazing out our little kitchen window, lost in thought. I wondered what dreams danced behind her eyes. Did she ever think about what life might look like outside these four walls? I had. Oh, how I had. Each day in the apartment we shared felt like a gentle tug toward the life I was now poised to step into. The memory of the day I first set foot in my dream apartment still lingered, its wide windows letting in streams of sun that warmed the polished wooden floors and its quiet corners that hummed with potential. Peace enveloped me as I imagined dinners on the balcony and laughter echoing through those walls. But as those fantasies bloomed, so did my anxiety. Shouldn't I be raising my voice, proclaiming my pride? Isn't that what friends do? I'd think about telling Emma over our favorite Thai takeout, but those moments only reinforced my hesitation. There was always a spark of levity in our conversations, a casual banter that kept the air light. Yet that spark felt dulled by my secret. Whenever she shared her latest thoughts on where she wanted to travel, I could only nod, biting the inside of my cheek hard enough to remind myself of the stakes at play. One evening, as we wrapped ourselves in the fluffy cocoon of a shared blanket during our Netflix marathon, I noticed invisible threads weaving between us. She laughed at the antics unfolding on screen, and I found joy in her laughter. Still, the question loomed over me like a storm on the horizon: should I preserve her happiness or reach for mine? I traced the pattern on the blanket, the soft fabric reminding me of the balance I was trying to maintain, the way it molded to the shape of whoever was beneath it. Days passed, and there was an odd comfort in that uncertainty. I'd get lost in thoughts of my new apartment, envisioning a small plant sitting by the window or a bookshelf packed with stories just waiting to be read. I began skipping runs with Emma on Saturdays, instead dedicating that time to exploring my new neighborhood, where vibrant street art told stories that clashed and mingled in brilliant chaos. Each sunset I witnessed filled me with a blend of enthusiasm and remorse. Was I inching too far from her, or was I simply embracing a solitude that had finally become mine? Then came the day that shifted everything, as these things often do. Late in the afternoon, I unexpectedly trailed home from one of my excursions filled with the kind of energy that could brighten the dullest of days. I swung open the door, ready to spill my heart, only to find Emma sitting on the couch, her feet curled beneath her, serene eyes glued to an old photo album, a collage of memories that spoke of laughter and friendship. "Look at us," she said with a soft giggle. "Wasn't life simpler back then?" Looking at her warm smile, I felt my resolve waver. "Yeah," I whispered, my voice barely wading through the moment. Would telling her about the new place shatter this semblance of nostalgia, or could it become a new chapter we painted together? I had always sought comfort in silence, but now, there was a quietness settling in that felt thick with unspoken words. My heart raced with frustration and sweetness as I stood at the precipice of that choice. I wanted her to be part of my joy, yet something held me back. I saw the glimmer of hope in her eyes, the kind of hope I wanted to nurture, but could I usher in a new beginning without hurting what we had built? As the shadows stretched across the room, I fought the urge to cross that tightrope too soon. One foot in front of the other, I told myself, knowing that if I took my time, maybe I could find a way to weave our threads into a larger tapestry, one that included both our dreams, weaving them slowly, gently, savoring each moment as it unfolded. Reflection: as the days blurred together, I found myself retreating into thought, reflecting on the quiet conflict brewing inside me. I realized that my fear of sharing my dreams with her stemmed from a deeper part of me, this instinct to protect what I held dear. But in safeguarding my joy, was I inadvertently creating a divide? I started to ask myself what fueled my hesitation. Was it the fear of losing what we had, or was it my selfishness that had taken root? Looking back, I understood that silence had always felt like safety to me. It was a cocoon, wrapping me up and shielding me from the potential pain of vulnerability. But now, in this new reality, that silence felt less like a refuge and more like a cage. I began to recognize the value of sharing my dreams and joys, not just for me, but for us. I had painted this beautiful vision of a life I longed for, yet I was allowing fear to dull its vibrance. In this quiet room, as the sun set and cast warm hues across the walls, I envisioned how we could both flourish alongside each other. What if sharing my excitement could invite her to dream bigger? To realize her own hopes and aspirations in tandem with mine? Suddenly, I felt a flicker of warmth. I was reminded that our connection was built on honesty. Her laughter, her unwavering support, the way she brought the best out of me, didn't she deserve to know when I was carving out my slice of happiness? There was a beautiful honesty in vulnerability. The weight of unspoken words gradually lifted, and I began to see our shared space differently. Instead of a landscape marked by fear, I envisioned it as a garden, blossoming with shared joy and possibility. Yes, it would take trust and patience, but the very act of sharing felt like watering roots that had grown beneath the surface. I could nurture my dream without uprooting our lives, our journeys could intertwine into something richer. With each passing moment, I felt a gentle shift inside, a growing clarity that perhaps this was an opportunity, not just for me, but for her too. I was ready to embrace the thrill of the unknown, to step off that tightrope and find our path together, a space painted with dreams both new and precious. As these thoughts settled in my heart, I felt lighter, more open, ready to let the magic of vulnerability find its way into our lives. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm and joy. Something beautiful was about to unfold, and I was finally ready to share it. Standing there in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun pouring through our living room window, I caught a glimpse of the life I had held in my heart, hushed and hiding in the corners. The walls were a canvas, washed in the warmth of golden light. It was as if the universe had whispered a little secret to me, nudging me along. Right then, everything started to crystallize. I could hear the faint sound of my roommate laughing in the other room, the way her joy always seemed to fill the entire house. That laughter was like a thread, connecting us through the ups and downs. It was a reminder of the bond we shared, one built on late-night talks and countless cups of tea. An idea blossomed inside me. What if this next step, this dream apartment I was holding so tightly, was something we could weave together? I took a deep breath and closed my eyes for a moment. That suffocating fear of ruining what we had began to fade. I recalled the times we had supported each other's dreams, the late nights she stayed up with me when I was spiraling over my job search, the way I encouraged her to chase after that promotion she deserved but hesitated to pursue. We were stronger together. Opening my eyes, I turned my gaze back to the window, letting the light bathe me in warmth. The thought of sharing my new dream felt like opening a window after a long winter. It was fresh, invigorating, and full of possibility. I could already envision how the two of us could create a shared space that harmonized our lives, where my aspirations could blend with her laughter, forming a symphony of dreams. In that moment, clarity washed over me. I made a decision. I wouldn't carry this alone, nor should I tomorrow. Over our usual breakfast together, I would tell her. I would share my dreams, my fears, and my hopes, and, most importantly, invite her to be a part of this new chapter. The thought of sharing brought a smile to my face, a newfound lightness in my heart. It was time to breathe life into the unspoken, to embrace vulnerability with open arms. I felt a surge of gratitude for our friendship, ready to blossom further. As I stood there, I knew that this was a turning point, not just for me, but for both of us. Tomorrow, we would take that leap together, no more tightrope walking alone. I could hardly wait to see what awaited us. The next morning, the gentle light filtered through the kitchen window, hinting at all the possibilities awaiting us outside. The aroma of brewing coffee mingled with faint whispers of toast, creating a cozy cocoon around our breakfast table. My heart fluttered with anticipation, though I maintained a calm facade, carefully folding my emotions into the last bites of my meal. As we sipped our coffee, laughter erupted between us, soft and warm, the kind that held the promise of deeper conversations ahead. I felt the stirrings of nerves, but beneath them lay a grounded sense of purpose. It was time to unravel the threads I had woven tightly around my dream and to weave her in, too. So, I've been thinking about my future, I began, waiting for the spark of curiosity to flicker in her eyes. She looked up from her plate, eyebrows raised in interest, and I took a breath, gathering my thoughts. I shared everything, the apartment, the excitement bubbling inside me, and the trepidation about sharing this journey. Her reaction caught me off guard. Instead of the unexpected weight of judgment or disappointment I had feared, I found only joy radiating from her. "You found it," she exclaimed, her face lighting up like the morning sun. "That's amazing. You have to tell me all about it." The more I spoke, the brighter her smile grew, until we were both grinning like children caught up in a secret adventure. I invited her to see the place, imagining how she would react to the open spaces and golden-hued walls, how they'd come alive with stories and laughter, just as our hearts wished. But I also felt the need to address the elephant in the room, that unspoken question of what it meant for our living situation. "Would you want to come with me?" I asked, my voice lowering slightly. I held my breath, half expecting her to shy away, to feel hurt that I hadn't shared this sooner. Instead, she nodded slowly, her eyes sparkling with understanding. "I love this place, but I know how important this opportunity is for you," she said, her voice steady and full of support. "I might want to look for something new, too, somewhere I can just be myself." It was then I realized how beautifully intertwined our paths were. Our friendship was a garden, each of us nurturing dreams while allowing the other to grow freely, even if it meant separate spaces. The thought of her embarking on her own adventure sparked an excitement deep within me. As the days turned into weeks, the transition felt like falling leaves shooting into the air, full of color and beauty. We worked together, scouting new places for her, filling our time with laughter and shared dreams. Each evening, I'd wander back to my dream apartment, and each time, it felt a little fuller with her presence echoing through its walls. In those quiet moments, retelling our old stories, we became architects of new memories. While the seasons changed, the heart of our friendship remained unchanged, resilient and ever-expanding. Sometimes, stepping into the light meant letting go of shadows, embracing change as an ally rather than an enemy. I learned that the strength of our bond only deepened when shared, when dreams are woven together like the vibrant threads of a tapestry. As I finally settled into my new apartment, the gentle hum of that symphony filled every corner. And in the stillness of the evenings, I smiled, knowing we had transformed an uncertain leap into a flight of freedom. Our hearts, once hesitant, were free now to soar together, boundlessly. And so, I realized that dreams don't just belong to one, they're shared in the quiet spaces between laughter and tears. In stepping forward, I wasn't leaving her behind, but inviting her to walk alongside me in this new chapter. Sometimes, the most beautiful stories are those we write together, even when the paths diverge. After all, friendship is about embracing each other's dreams as if they were our own. It was one of those quiet, starry nights where the world seemed to inhale deeply, cradled in the warm embrace of twilight. I sat on my worn-out couch, the flickering glow of the table lamp casting soft shadows around my small living room, where memories lingered like the scent of freshly brewed tea. The old wooden floor creaked under the weight of nostalgia, and there was an undeniable comfort in the way my dog, Charlie, snored gently at my feet, his golden fur glistening softly in the dim light, reminding me of sun-kissed afternoons spent at the park. Life had been beautiful and messy, just the way I liked it. As a freelancer working from home, I often forgot the outside world, lost in deadlines and the comforting company of Charlie. Most days, I felt like I could hear the heartbeat of my little apartment, a blend of quiet solitude and the occasional laugh from the neighbors. They were good people, just a little quirky, like me. My closest friend, Annie, brought warmth and laughter into my life, often dragging me out of my creative bubble and into the vibrant city, though, admittedly, we both preferred cozy nights in with takeout and movies. But that all began to shift the moment I brought Alex into my life. He was charming, with a smile that could light up the dullest of days, and I found myself weaving him into my world without reservation. Conversations flowed easily, as if we were old friends who had suddenly found each other in a crowded room. And yet, somewhere along the way, boundaries began to blur. I could sense his cautiousness, a certain hesitation when it came to Charlie, as if the gentle golden retriever posed an unseen threat to his meticulously curated life. Oh, how I wish I had trusted my instincts back then. It all started as small comments, subtly positioned jokes about how dogs were messy and unpredictable. But when he claimed to be allergic, it became my quiet tipping point, suspending the fabric of my world, unraveling the threads I had woven so carefully around him and my beloved Charlie. It was a soft, bittersweet realization, one that felt all too heavy to carry. Now, as I sit here, the weight of that lie settles around me like a thick fog, and I can't help but wonder how I let it all unfold. It was a chilly Saturday evening, the kind where you could almost see your breath dancing in the air, and the warm glow of the string lights outside my cozy little apartment created a magical atmosphere. I had invited a few friends over for dinner, thrilled to share a meal and stories, with Charlie snoozing peacefully on his favorite rug, his gentle breathing the backdrop to our laughter. As I set up the dining table, carefully placing my grandmother's old china alongside vibrant flowers from the market, I caught sight of Nick. He stood near the door, the light casting a soft glow on his features, but there was something in his expression as he looked at Charlie that caught me off guard. It was almost like he didn't quite belong, as if he were a ghost hovering on the edges of our warm gathering. Then, the moment came. Charlie, ever the social butterfly, trotted like a fluffy cloud toward Nick, wagging his tail in that unmistakable way that just shouted, "I am your friend." But instead of leaning down to scratch that soft, golden head, Nick flinched, taking a hasty step back. I remember the small gasp that escaped my lips, my smile faltering as I glanced between them. I should have mentioned," he stammered, his words trailing off into awkward silence. The laughter and chatter of our friends faded away, replaced by the tension of this unexpected revelation. "I'm allergic to dogs," he finally admitted, his voice a strained whisper that hung in the air like a heavy curtain ready to fall. There it was, the shattering truth that hadn't been there moments before. The words felt foreign, unwelcome. I could see the slight tremor in his hands as he gestured vaguely, dismissively, to Charlie, who was oblivious to the storm brewing around him. As I forced my smile back into place, a swirling mix of confusion and concern washed over me. What if he really was allergic, I thought, clutching at the threads of disbelief. But deep down, a lingering fear began to creep in. What if this was his way of pushing Charlie, and me, away? That singular moment of tension ignited a flicker of doubt in my heart. In his nervous gaze, I saw a flicker of something else, a desire to distance himself from my life, my sweet Charlie. And as the night progressed, under the clinking of glasses and the soft music, the gentle warmth of friendship felt suddenly fractured, as if a fragile glass had been dropped and was now struggling to hold its shape. The seed of uncertainty was planted, and with it, I felt a part of me slowly begin to unravel. In the days that followed, everything began to feel a little heavier, a little more layered, as though the world had shifted ever so slightly. I would wake up every morning with Charlie nestled against me, his soft, familiar warmth setting a soothing tone. But even in those tender moments, a gnawing doubt would curl around my heart, like a vine overtaking a once open path. Had Ethan truly meant what he said about being allergic, or was it simply a convenient excuse to edge further away from both me and my beloved dog? Each time I looked at Charlie, bounding through the living room with his wagging tail and infectious joy, my heart ached. I could sense a subtle change in the air, a hush that seemed to whisper not just the usual comfort of knowing Charlie was there, but an undercurrent of fear of losing this joyful spirit to someone who seemed, at first, so open, so warm, yet now carried an unfamiliar chill. Ethan had always been my confidant, my laughter amidst the chaos of life. But now, our conversations felt padded with this invisible barrier. I dreaded interacting with him. I caught myself second-guessing every shared glance, every playful tease. On our morning hikes, instead of sharing spontaneous jokes about which dog might outrun which car, I found myself watching him more closely, noting the way he would subtly flinch should Charlie paw at his jeans. Those moments, a blink, a deep breath, a fidget, began to carve out deeper into my heart. I tried to talk to him about it once, letting my words tumble out slowly, stammering as I cautiously navigated the topic of allergies. He had brushed it off, insisting he was fine, and while I wanted to believe him, the emptiness behind his reassuring smile told a different story. After that talk, I became hyper-aware of how much I entrusted our connection to routine. Every evening we'd share a cup of tea, and while I brewed, I'd retreat into myself, the gentle rhythm of the kettle masking my spiraling thoughts. My muscles tensed as the silence wrapped around us like an unwelcome shroud. Even simple outings morphed into mind games. I avoided mentioning Charlie at all costs when we were together, forcing myself to sidestep the topic, fearing it might spark an uncomfortable reaction. I began to feel as if Charlie was a dirty secret I had to hide under the cover of our shared laughter and late-night talks. My own home felt like a paradox, a cozy sanctuary for me and Charlie, yet a landmined battleground where feelings lurked undiscovered. This duality started to weigh heavily on my spirit, creating an ache I couldn't shake. I lost a bit of my laughter, the easy joy I'd had around Ethan. I often found myself staring out the window, watching the leaves dance in the wind, trying to decipher when this beautiful, vibrant friendship had slipped into something shadowy. I'd giggle at Charlie's odd little quirks, only to have the laughter die down in my throat, like a warm summer breeze cut off by an unexpected chill. On particularly hard days, I would wrap my arms around Charlie, burying my face into his soft fur, inhaling his comforting scent. "Why would he want to leave us, buddy?" I'd murmur. I felt like I was on a tightrope, juggling emotions, trying to balance my affection for Ethan against my undying love for Charlie. Each time I forced a smile around Ethan, I felt a piece of myself unravel and drift away, leaving only that nagging doubt tangled in its wake. Yet, amidst that feeling of detachment, I still sought solace in the little things. I would sit with Charlie on the couch, letting him lay his head in my lap, feeling the calm rise and fall of his breathing. I drew strength from his unwavering loyalty, reminding myself that I was never truly alone. Each soft sigh from him was a quiet affirmation, and I clung to that comfort desperately, hoping that whatever path lay ahead would lead us back to a clearer understanding, a kinder place where love could thrive once again without pain or uncertainty lurking in the shadows. Reflection: sometimes, it takes a moment of heartache to reveal the truths we've buried beneath layers of affection and doubt. I spent so long trying to fit Ethan's picture of what love should look like that I almost forgot to ask myself what love truly meant to me. The joy I experienced with Charlie was pure and unfiltered, a reminder of just how beautiful companionship could be. His gentle presence taught me a lot. He embodied loyalty and a simple, unwavering happiness that seemed so rare. As I sat there, Charlie's head nestled in my lap, I realized something crucial: love shouldn't come with ultimatums or masks. It shouldn't make you feel torn or diminished. I had been so afraid of losing Ethan that I ignored the voice whispering in the back of my mind, urging me to stand up for what I valued most. With each shared moment with Charlie, that voice grew louder, a soft but unwavering reminder that true love celebrates who you are, not who you ought to be. This experience wasn't just about a selfish choice, it was a profound awakening. I recognized that prioritizing my own happiness and the well-being of my beloved dog was not an act of betrayal but one of self-respect. It ushered in a newfound clarity. I began to see the relationships around me not in shades of compromise but in the radiance of mutual respect. I deserve to feel whole, surrounded by those who uplift me and accept my quirks, including my furry companion. With Charlie beside me, I could face the uncertain ether between love and loyalty. I learned that choosing to embrace authenticity over uncertainty could lead me to a more profound understanding of myself. It replaced that nagging doubt with a serene certainty: whatever the outcome, I would choose love that felt right, unconditional, fierce, and free. So, the journey forward isn't just about making a choice about Ethan or anyone else, it's about embracing a little fearlessness. I could let Charlie's calming energy guide me, reminding me to be patient and gentle with myself. Love, after all, should wrap around you like a warm blanket, not constrict like chains, and as I looked down at my loyal friend, I knew it was time to live authentically. And that realization, simple yet profound, filled my heart with a joy that transcended the temporary pain. That feeling felt like home, and I couldn't wait to see where it might lead me next. The moment pressed softly against my chest, a gentle nudge coaxing me past the whirlwind of hurt and confusion. I remember standing in my living room, the light filtering through the curtains, casting a warm glow that made everything feel a bit more dreamlike. Charlie lay at my feet, his soft breathing syncing with the rhythm of my thoughts. I could feel the unease fluttering inside me, but there was also a new clarity, like a dawn breaking over a foggy horizon. I thought about Ethan, the way his smile had initially lit up the space between us, how he effortlessly filled the gaps in conversations. But in that moment, standing there, heart wide open, I understood: love shouldn't carry the weight of pretense. It shouldn't feel like a game of masks and careful deceptions. I felt a gentle shift within me, a call to align my heart with my truth. As I knelt down to stroke Charlie's fur, there was a rush of warmth and comfort. It was as if every wag of his tail was a reminder of what loyalty truly meant, of the unyielding bond we shared. I began to chuckle softly at the absurdity of it all, the lengths we go to for acceptance, the barriers we build around our hearts. Ethan had tried to create a disconnection, but in that serene moment with Charlie, I realized how deeply connected I already was, to my dog, yes, but also to myself. And so, I made a quiet promise. Not to Charlie, but to myself. I was done with the games. I wouldn't shrink or silence the love I held for my dog or the love I wished to build with someone who genuinely welcomed both of us. I wanted relationships where honesty bloomed freely, where each heartbeat echoed a truth that strengthened the bond. As I breathed in, I felt lighter, a release, a sigh, as if the air around me got sweeter with every moment. The uncertainty didn't disappear, but now it hung in the background, softened by a commitment to embrace love, full-heartedly and without compromise. Each time Charlie looked up at me, his warm eyes reflecting trust and companionship, I knew I had everything I needed right there. And perhaps tomorrow, I'd start fresh, maybe reach out again to Ethan, but this time grounding myself in the strength of my choices. With that realization, clarity washed over me like a gentle tide, foaming and retreating, leaving my heart ready to greet whatever came next. As the days passed, I found myself reflecting on what had unfolded between Ethan and me, grappling with the bittersweet sting of betrayal but also feeling a quiet resolve growing within. I had shielded Charlie from unnecessary conflict, reassuring him with comforting words and gentle pats as we adjusted to a new rhythm, just the two of us. And so, with each morning's first light spilling through our window, we forged a little routine together. There was comfort in the simplicity of it, pouring my coffee, the aroma curling through the air, and Charlie trotting alongside, thumping his tail against my legs, demanding attention. He became my anchor, the embodiment of unwavering loyalty, reminding me that love can flourish without pretense or untruths. After a week, I decided to reach out to Ethan, but from a different place. This time, my message was gentle, unguarded. I simply wanted to share how I felt, a mix of confusion and hope, a testimony to the ebb and flow of our connection. I expressed my need for honesty, about how we might address the distance that had grown between us. Ethan replied with unexpected vulnerability. He admitted that he wasn't truly allergic. The truth was, he felt overwhelmed by the responsibilities of our relationship. In a way, his deception was an escape, a misguided attempt to untangle himself without confrontation. I appreciated his honesty, and for the first time, I understood his fears. The tenderness that softened his words reminded me of the fragility of human connections. We didn't end up rekindling our romance, but through that exchange, we were able to part ways amicably, each of us carrying a clearer understanding of our own hearts. I think we both needed that closure, a way to speak the unspoken, to give voice to our fears, and let them float away like autumn leaves drifting on a soft breeze. With Ethan, I learned the importance of honesty, and it allowed me to fortify my own truths. It taught me to embrace discomfort and let it weave into the fabric of my life. Now, as I looked at Charlie curled up on the floor, his rhythmic breaths a soothing lullaby, I knew we were exactly where we needed to be, free from the weight of pretense. The shadows of disappointment lingered, but under their shelter, a warmth began to bloom, one that reminded me that endings can be gentle, that every step toward honesty nurtures growth. I found peace in knowing that love, in its many forms, is a journey woven of lessons, companionship, and ultimately, truths that set us free. As the stars winked in the vast night sky, I wrapped my arms around my furry friend, feeling the steadfast rhythm of his heartbeat against my own. Tomorrow would bring new beginnings, and for now, we lay together, comforted by the soft whispers of the universe, a reminder that love endures when we build it on sincerity and trust. And so, as I drifted into sleep with my loyal companion by my side, I realized that sometimes, the truest paths to healing are paved with the honesty we dare to embrace. In a world of masks and facades, it's our vulnerability that truly connects us, reminding us to cherish the love that's faithful and real. It's quiet here now, the kind of stillness that wraps around me like a warm, soft blanket. The faint hum of the refrigerator is the only sound breaking through the silence of my little house, where time seems to stand still since he's been gone. I can still smell the hints of cedar from the shelves he built himself, and the lingering notes of his favorite musk that never quite left the fabric of our couch. Sometimes I close my eyes and pretend he's just in the next room, tinkering with a project, or maybe flipping through pages of a dog-eared novel before bedtime. My name is Clara, and I've been living in our home for the better part of a decade. It was supposed to be our forever place, a cozy nest built on love and laughter. But since losing Andrew, things have changed, and I've noticed how people see me now, like the light has dimmed around me, like I've turned into someone unrecognizable. I'm the woman they whisper about at the grocery store or nod at with pity when I catch their eye. I didn't ask for it, but feelings have a way of spilling over, and I'm still trying to navigate a jagged edge of grief that just won't seem to heal. It's hard to explain to folks who drop by unannounced, to my well-meaning friends who think I should let go of his things, that every sweater and book still carries a fragment of him, an echo of our shared life. Each item in this house is a memory, a story, and in some small way, a way to keep him alive. They're not mere belongings to me, they're pieces of my heart wrapped in fabric and ink. And when I stand before that wooden chest he carved with his own hands, a lump forms in my throat, and I feel the weight of their concerned stares. I just think it's time to move on, one of them said gently the other day, her voice soft like the pillow I bury my face in at night when loneliness creeps back in. Maybe she didn't mean it to sting, but it felt like a reminder that I was stuck, frozen in a moment they seemed to have passed. How could they understand that sharing his things feels like sharing my memories, my love? Each step further away from those remnants feels like a step away from him. As the evening deepens and the shadows grow longer, I sit here in the quiet, tracing my fingers over the spines of his books and wishing for a spark of the old warmth to return. It's not about being cold, no, it's a tenderness that refuses to part with the past. Sometimes, in this silence, I find solace in stories, in sharing my thoughts here, hoping that someone, somewhere could understand a heart like mine. The inciting event slipped into my life like an unexpected chill, that moment when I realized I was not just clinging to memories but was creating a barrier around my heart. It was last weekend, a small gathering of friends who had come to check in on me, offering what they thought was support. I truly appreciated their efforts, but I wasn't quite prepared for the discussion that unfolded. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the room, laughter bubbled up and buzzed in the air. It felt almost normal, a moment where joy reminded me of simpler times. But then, after a few glasses of wine and a hesitant nudge from Sarah, my well-meaning friend who always seemed to know just the right question to ask, they started talking about their own home decluttering projects. It was lighthearted at first, sharing tips on what to keep and what to let go of, but then Sarah turned to me, her eyes softened with concern, and said, "You know, it might help to go through some of James's things. It's probably time." Those words landed like a heavy stone in my chest, and the light in the room dimmed, even as laughter continued around us. Time? I hadn't even begun to wrap my heart around the idea that time could glide past something so precious. It felt fresh, the loss still wrapped around me like a thick blanket I could hardly shake off. Every book on the shelf, every piece of clothing hanging in the closet, whispered stories and memories I wasn't ready to silence. "Oh, it's not that easy," I said, the tremor in my voice cutting through the festive atmosphere. There was an awkward pause, a silence that felt like a collective intake of breath, as they shifted in their seats. I realized then that my words had cast an unexpected shadow. I wasn't just disagreeing with Sarah, I was drawing a line that they couldn't see, one that set me apart from the circle of their understanding and healing. The looks exchanged among my friends revealed a growing concern. Some nodded, murmuring soft assurances, while others glanced down awkwardly, unsure of how to navigate my frozen state. I wanted to tell them it felt less cold-hearted and more like treasuring the warmth of what used to be. But instead, I just pressed my lips together and forced a smile that felt far too fragile. In that moment, I understood, like a clear bell ringing through the fog, that refusing to share his belongings often meant refusing to let others fully reach me, and yet, how could they possibly hold the weight of what I carried? I was a guardian of our memories, fiercely protecting the essence of love that still lingered in every corner of my home. As the evening wrapped up and I saw the understanding fading from their eyes, I felt like I was 2 steps away from the warmth of companionship, moving closer into solitude rather than deeper into connection. It was a challenging realization, one I wasn't quite ready to face. The days after the dinner, the realization clung to me like an old, faded sweater. Each morning, I would wake with an ache that seemed to settle in my bones, a quiet reminder of the days that had unfurled so quickly yet felt so achingly slow since Sam's passing. It was strange, how I could miss him more with every tick of the clock, every sip of tea. The familiar ritual of morning light spilling through the kitchen window, casting patterns on the tiles, felt like a mocking reminder of the daylight we would never share again. At first, I stayed busy. I organized his old records, stacked them neatly on the shelves, dusted off the vinyl covers, the ones that still bore his handwritten notes on the back, words of affection wrapped in the tones of his voice. I thought I was honoring him, reminiscing, preserving the echoes of our shared laughter and whispered dreams. Yet, as I organized, I could almost hear the soft, echoing murmur of my friends' voices in the back of my mind, telling me to share these pieces of him, to let others see the beauty of our life together. The more I tried to push away these thoughts, the louder they became, resonating like a haunting tune I couldn't ignore. My evenings turned into silent battles, as I sifted through boxes filled with memories, his favorite shirt, a weathered baseball cap, even the books he loved to read curled up on the couch beside me. I would hold each item, my fingers trembling over the fabric and the print. It felt impossible to reconcile the drive to protect these remnants of our love with the growing loneliness that seeped into my heart like an unwelcome chill. I found myself telling little white lies to friends who offered to come by and help me out. "Oh, I'm fine really. Just organizing things around here." As they left, I felt the door close on something deeper. With every dismissal, I was threading a barrier around my heart, but oh, how comforting that barrier felt, like a well-worn blanket shielding me from the outside world. Still, I couldn't shake the sensation of solitude wrapping around me, tighter with each passing moment. One afternoon, as I stood in front of a closet overflowing with Sam's clothes, I caught my reflection in the mirror, and for a brief flicker, I didn't recognize myself. The shadows under my eyes seemed to tell a story of loneliness I didn't want to unfold. I was the girl with the beautiful memories, yet I felt like a ghost wandering through the echo of love we had built together. I placed my hand over my heart and asked myself, was I really protecting those memories, or was I inadvertently building walls to hold the world at bay? It wasn't long before the silence became my closest companion. Even the simplest things, picking out groceries, curling up on a Sunday afternoon with a book, felt weightier without him beside me. I would look at couples in the park, sharing laughter, intertwined, and a dull ache would spread across my chest. I was missing an essential piece, the one who shared the sunrises and the quiet moments, but I was also becoming increasingly aware of my own tightening grip on the past. Some nights, after hours spent in contemplation, I sat on the edge of our bed, his side untouched, the sheets still smelling faintly of him. I would hold on to a shirt that belonged to him, my fingers running over the fabric as if trying to imprint the essence of him into my being. What a beautiful, yet heartbreaking ritual it was, a testament to however fleeting our time together felt. Then came a gentle invitation from my best friend, Emma. "Let's do something, just us two," she suggested in a voice light with hope. And my instinct was to resist, to retreat back into the cocoon of solitude I had so carefully woven. But a quiet part of me, a fragment nudging at the edges of my protective shell, whispered that maybe, just maybe, I could unlock a door instead of building more walls. So, I agreed, not without hesitation, but I said yes nonetheless. As I prepared to meet her, moments played back in my mind, flickers of laughter at shared dinners, the jolt of happiness at unexpected hugs. I sighed deeply, feeling the weight of those countless memories, reminders that connection could be a precursor to pain, yet it also held the promise for moments of joy. I thought of my late husband and realized that even in his absence, perhaps there was still a way forward, a gentle expansion of the heart, waiting quietly for its turn to heal. As I sit here, Reflecting on the choices I've made and the path I've walked since losing him, I realize how much I had clung to the relics of my past. It was like holding onto a lifeline, the few tangible pieces of my husband scattered throughout our home, each one a reminder of laughter, love, and warmth. I thought by refusing to part with his things, I was preserving our shared memories, encasing myself in a sanctuary where the pain couldn't quite reach me. But as I prepare to meet her, the woman who expressed so much empathy and understanding, I feel something shift within me. I can hear my husband's voice in the back of my mind, encouraging me to embrace life, to let in the light I had been so fiercely guarding against. I'm starting to understand that my refusal to let go isn't just about keeping his memory alive, it was also about fearing the unknown, the vulnerability of opening my heart to new experiences and connections. The tension that wrapped around the thoughts of sharing his belongings is slowly loosening. I'm beginning to see that the love we had is not confined to material things. It lives in my heart, in the moments we created together, and now, it has the potential to flourish in new spaces. That heaviness I felt, the coldness others described? It was simply my heart protecting itself from what felt like an unbearable loss. I've long viewed my grief as a shield, something impenetrable, but tonight, I see it more like a tapestry, beautifully intricate yet undeniably fragile. As I untangle the threads of sorrow and joy, I am piecing together a different vision of myself, one that acknowledges the deep ache of loss but also the strength of resilience. Deciding to share his things doesn't mean I am letting go of him. Instead, it's an embrace of the love he left behind and an invitation for new memories to take root. If I can learn to celebrate what we had, without fearing what might come next, I may find that my heart isn't cold after all. It's merely been waiting for the right moment to warm again, to expand, much like a blossom seeking the sun after a long winter. So, maybe I will share. Maybe I will find joy in knowing that his belongings can create warmth in someone else's life, just as they once did in mine. And with these thoughts, I take a deep breath, feeling the shift within me, a quiet resolve growing alongside the comforting echoes of the past, heralding a new beginning. The day was unseasonably warm for late autumn, the kind of day that often comes as a surprise. Bright sunlight blanketed my small living room, casting playful shadows against the walls. As I sat surrounded by my husband's things, his well-loved guitar propped against the wall, his well-worn sneakers casually tossed aside, the collection of books we've both cherished, I felt the familiar weights pressing down on my chest. They felt heavier today, enveloped in a thick blanket of sorrow. But then, something shifted. I let my eyes linger on his guitar, the one he strummed while we laughed under the stars, when the moonlight danced through our window and the world seemed to melt away. A wave of memory washed over me, his smile flickering like candlelight, the way he would lean into the music, lost in it, inviting me into a moment of pure joy. Those memories had always been my refuge, but today, they suggested something new. I rose from the couch and slowly walked to the guitar, fingers brushing against its smooth wood. I remembered how he often said that music was meant to be shared, a language that could bridge any distance. In that moment, I realized that holding onto his belongings with a clenched fist wasn't honoring his memory, it was shading it in shadows. Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun streaming through the window. I imagined his laughter echoing beyond these walls, infusing life into the silence around me. I thought of someone out there, a kid with dreams of becoming a musician, a friend needing a spark of inspiration, anyone who could find comfort in the warmth of those things once held dear. So, in a small but significant act, I reached down and picked up the guitar, cradling it gently. The strings had grown dusty, but I could almost hear the notes still lingering. I made my way to the corner of the room where I had created a little nook, a shrine of sorts filled with memories, and gently placed the guitar down next to his favorite books. It was a small gesture, but in that moment, it felt monumental. I could feel the tension release, the heaviness in my heart lightening just a little. I opened my eyes, and there, in the sunlight, I found a smile creeping onto my lips. I whispered a quiet promise to him, a sacred vow to find joy in the act of sharing, his laughter, his light, his passion, transforming my pain into a canvas for new memories to paint themselves upon. And in that quiet moment of clarity, I let the sun pour in, unpacking the heartache just enough to allow a bit of warmth to seep back in. I wasn't cold after all, I was simply allowing space for love to breathe again. Outcome as the days flowed into weeks, something beautiful started to blossom in my heart. Gradually, that little nook I had created wasn't just a shrine. It became a gathering place filled with the whispers of old stories and the warmth of cherished memories. Friends began to stop by, drawn by the flickering light that seemed to beckon them in. They brought laughter, reminiscences, and even a few spontaneous jam sessions with his guitar that had once sat silently, filled only with echoes of the past. I remember the first time we strummed together. The notes hung in the air like fragile bubbles, delicate and shimmering with every stroke. As we played, I felt my husband's spirit dancing in the rhythm, a gentle reminder that love doesn't end, it simply transforms. It was a sweet surrender to joy that cracked the shell of my coldness, piece by piece, each strum letting a little more light shine through. I also found comfort in volunteering at the local community center, where I discovered a group of people who were wrestling with their own losses. I shared my journey, my reluctance to let go, and how I learned to embrace the joy of sharing, and it resonated deeply with them. In those moments of connection, I understood that I wasn't alone, nor was my love just a relic of the past, it was a living testament that continued to touch lives. There were whispers from a few who couldn't grasp my choices, casting me as the cold widow who hoarded memories like treasures. But their words lost power as I surrounded myself with those who understood. I chose to treasure my husband's spirit, not in the hoarding of belongings but in the giving of myself, the sharing of our story, our laughter, and the love that remained like a thread weaving through all our lives. With each passing day, I embraced the impermanence of life, feeling less like a silhouette shadowed by grief and more like a beacon of hope reverberating love. The space I created was no longer a barrier, but a bridge, connecting us through shared love, shared memories, and the acceptance that joy and sorrow can exist simultaneously. So, as autumn painted the leaves in hues of gold and crimson, I learned to cherish the warmth of the sunshine that seeped into the corners of my heart. I let go, not of my husband, but of the fear and the coldness that had clung to me. Instead, I cradled every note, every shared moment, and every new experience that emerged, transforming grief into a beautiful tapestry of living life with an open heart. And that, I found, was more than enough. As the days grew shorter and the nights wrapped me in a calm embrace, I realized that love doesn't fade, it evolves. The things I held onto became treasures of the past, but it was in the present where I could truly honor his memory. By letting the sunshine in, I discovered that grief can be a gentle companion, guiding us toward a deeper understanding of joy. In that delicate balance, I learned, to love well is to live well, even amidst the shadows of loss. It was just past midnight, the remnants of my birthday party lingering like the faint scent of vanilla from the cake still cooling on the kitchen counter. I had spent the day surrounded by laughter and familiar faces, the kind that warm your soul and make the world feel a little bit brighter. The living room, crammed with colorful balloons and sun-bleached paper streamers, was slowly emptying out, the echoes of my friends' laughter fading into the quiet of the night. As much as I loved all of them, there was a soft pull in my heart that whispered it was time to leave, a quiet yearning not just for solitude, but for something deeper, something like a gentle reassessment of a year gone by. I could still hear the soft clinking of glasses and the muffled chatter from my closest friends in the next room, but inside, I felt like I was unraveling, a thread slowly coming undone. I'm the kind of person who loves to celebrate, who thrives in the glow of warmth and connection. But as the clock inched closer to midnight, the energy in the room shifted, and an unexpected wave of introspection washed over me. The atmosphere felt thick with expectation. Everyone was waiting for a toast, a punchline, the big reveal of this year's birthday wish. But deep down, I knew I was ready for something different, something quieter than the joyous chaos surrounding me. I pulled away from the group, squeezing past a friend who was animatedly recounting a story, laughter spilling out before I slipped into the cool, inviting stillness of the hallway. The soft hum of the outside world beckoned me, promising solace. In that moment, I let go of the celebrations that had enveloped me all night, feeling free and heavy all at once. Yet, as I stood there, clutching the birthday balloons, a metaphor for the weight of the day, I couldn't help but wonder if I was doing something wrong. Was it selfish of me to leave everyone behind? A tiny voice fluttered in my mind, questioning if walking away from this beautiful chaos would dim the joy of those who had come together to celebrate my existence. But then, with the quiet pull of clarity, I realized I wasn't just leaving, I was seeking out my own rhythm amidst the comforting noise of friendship. As the clock ticked steadily toward midnight, a wave of laughter reached me from the living room, a joyful backdrop to my contemplations. It felt almost like a warm hug, wrapping around the bright decorations and the chatter of friends I had so carefully curated for this day. There were party hats here and there, a sea of colors glimmering under the fairy lights we had strung together just hours before. But as I peered around the corner, feeling more like an observer than a participant, something shifted in the air. It wasn't a grand moment, nothing overtly dramatic, just a subtle change in tone, like the music softening without warning. I could hear snippets of conversation, a mishmash of jokes, stories, and a few awkward silences sprinkled in, all perfectly normal for a gathering of friends. Yet, it felt like the laughter was dancing without me, swirling just out of reach. In that brief pause of the universe, I caught a glimpse of my friend Jenna animatedly telling a story. She gestured wildly, her laughter bright and infectious. But just behind her, two other friends, Tom and Sarah, were caught in a tangle of hushed whispers, their expressions growing increasingly tense. My heart sank, recognizing the unspoken tension brewing beneath the evening's surface. It was so small, yet it seemed to ripple outward, touching everything in its way. I can't explain why, but in that moment, standing alone with those balloons, I felt the weight of all that uncertainty become unbearably heavy. In a matter of moments, the laughter that had once felt like a warm embrace grew distant, and I was left standing on the edge of this vibrant party, feeling more like an outsider than the guest of honor. I had envisioned a night filled with connection and joy, but now, I could see how easily those threads of camaraderie could fray. The idea of leaving began to crystallize in my mind. It would be my way of sidestepping the potential awkwardness, the discomfort that was quietly creeping in, like a shadow at dusk. I took a breath, tasting the bittersweet mix of relief and sadness, and let the invitation to solitude wash over me. The air was thick with celebration, but what I craved was a moment of peace, just for me. As the chatter continued behind me, I felt a gentle pull toward the door, a whisper of my own needs reminding me that it was okay to step away. A small, quiet act, but one that felt monumental in contrast to the jubilant chaos swirling behind me. And so, with balloons softly cradled in my arms, I took my first step into the cool night, feeling both the thrill of liberation and a twinge of guilt, a complex tapestry of emotions that I would soon have to untangle. As I slipped outside, the door clicked softly behind me, a momentary barrier between me and the cacophony within. The moon hung high, casting a silver glow over the garden where laughter and music faded into a distant hum. I found myself in an intimate hush, the world slowing to match my heartbeat. My mind wandered to how the party had unfolded, friends chatting, memories shared, and yet, I still felt detached, like an observer behind a glass wall. Sitting on a bench under the friendly gaze of the moon, I could feel the weight of expectation easing off my shoulders. It was quiet, and the air tasted crisp, filled with the fragrance of blooming night jasmine. I took a deep breath, inviting serenity in, but there was a small, nagging voice at the back of my mind. From the moment I stepped away, it had begun whispering doubts. Was it wrong to want solitude on my own birthday? Shouldn't I be engaging, laughing, gathering moments I could cherish? I wrestled with the contradictions playing out in my heart. As I sat there, I unfurled my phone, scrolling through the multitude of birthday wishes that flooded in. Hope your day is amazing. Can't wait to celebrate. Each exuberant message tugged at that guilt, a reminder of the joy that was happening mere steps away. But I needed this. I needed the quiet to sift through what I truly felt. It was becoming clearer that my birthday had become less about celebration and more about fulfilling others' expectations. Was there a part of me that longed for it transformed into a day of stillness instead? Gradually, the emotional unraveling turned into insight. The weeks following began to reflect my newfound understanding. I found myself carving out small pockets of solitude in my daily routine. Mornings became a sacred time, spent with golden sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows, sipping tea as I watched the world wake up. Evenings drew me to memoirs that held vulnerability, where I could witness someone else's journey, their ups and downs, and feel less alone in the exploration of my own. At work, I gradually embraced those 5-minute retreats to the rooftop garden during lunch breaks, where the hum of the city became the backdrop to my thoughts. I discovered I had so much more to say to myself when the noise faded away. It was as if I was slowly rediscovering a long-lost friend. But the reality of my birthday lingered. Friends questioned my abrupt exit gently during our subsequent meetups. "Did you enjoy the party?" they'd ask, wearing expressions layered with concern and curiosity. Each inquiry felt like a ripple in a pond, stirring reflections I had yet to explore. I assured them all was well, painting the picture of a joyful party. It wasn't a lie exactly, but it wasn't the whole truth either. I began to realize that they saw my need for pause as an invitation to fill their own discomfort. It was on one of those quiet afternoons that I had a conversation with Clara, my closest friend. The warmth of her understanding cradled my words like a soft blanket. "It's okay to not always want to be at the center," she said, her eyes kind. "Maybe it's just your way of celebrating in a way that feels right for you." Her words settled over me like fresh layers of snow. I began to understand that stepping away didn't mean dismissing the love of those who wanted to celebrate me. I was allowed to honor my own need for introspection while simultaneously holding space for others' joy. Slowly, as the days turned into weeks, I found balance. I learned how to step into communal moments while nurturing my need for solitude, an ebb and flow that felt natural. My birthday became a pivotal moment, not the end of a celebration but the beginning of a deeper, more compassionate understanding of myself. With time, that night faded into a beautiful memory that I carried with me, a gentle reminder that it's okay to listen to yourself, and that honoring your own needs is, in its own way, a celebration too. In the quiet afterthoughts of that night, I found myself cradling a new perspective, like a delicate treasure. Initially, I thought leaving my party made me selfish, a shadowy villain in a story meant for joyous celebration. But the more I reflected, the more I began to unravel the knot of my feelings. This wasn't a tale of self-indulgence, it was about self-respect. I realized that so often, I had bent to the weight of others' expectations, thinking I had to smile and engage even when my soul begged for stillness. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement, believing that your worth is measured by how much energy you can give. But that night, when I walked away from the laughter that floated like confetti in the air, I was, for the first time, boldly declaring that my needs mattered just as much as anyone else's. I came to understand that stepping away from the crowd didn't diminish my worth, instead, it enhanced it. It reminded me of the importance of being true to myself amidst the festivities. It felt as if a weight lifted, leaving room for clarity to seep in. I embraced the notion that sometimes, honoring yourself is the most generous gift you can offer to others. When you show up for yourself, you can show up for them more deeply, too. As I lay awake that night, the glow of soft lights wrapping around me like a warm embrace, I found peace in my solitude. I recognized the beauty in moments spent reflecting, breathing, and just being. It was okay to step away and welcome the quieter parts of myself. Those quieter moments were equally worthy of celebration. I learned to cherish the balance between the laughter shared with friends and the silence that nourished my spirit. With each passing day, it became a gentle rhythm, a dance between camaraderie and solitude that felt utterly freeing. And as I moved forward, I vowed to welcome the ebb and flow of my existence, allowing space for my own heart while still surrendering to the joy of togetherness. I realized my birthday wasn't just about the people around me, it was about me, a lovely, imperfect individual learning to love myself in all my forms. I found joy in that, and it lit a path ahead, reminding me that every year brings not just aging but another chance to honor who I truly am. As the clock crept towards midnight, the jubilant energy of the party enveloped me like a warm, vibrant blanket. Laughter mingled in the air, vibrant discussions floated around, and the glow of fairy lights danced across smiling faces. But beneath the surface of this celebration, I felt a familiar tug, a whisper reminding me of the quieter presence within. I watched my friends, their animated gestures and echoing laughter filling the room, and I felt joy swell within me, not out of obligation, but out of love for each of them, each moment shared. But then it hit me, a wave of realization washed over me, calming the storm of thoughts I hadn't even realized were brewing. The heartwarming memory of last year flooded back, how I had clung to the chaos, figuring it was the only way to keep up with the world around me. Yet here I was, surrounded by the same people, yet feeling beautifully different. The room filled with voices faded, leaving a soft hum of contentment in its place, and in that moment, I found clarity. I didn't have to stay wrapped in the exuberance if it didn't align with my spirit right now. It was okay to step away, to honor myself by embracing the stillness that awaited me beyond the chatter. The idea wasn't rooted in disappointment or a sense of disconnect, rather, it was a gentle acknowledgement of my own needs, a soft voice saying, "You deserve this." So, I took a long, deep breath. It was as if the air around me shifted, offering a fresh, optimistic taste of solitude that I had come to love. My heart filled with gratitude as I glanced around the room one last time, soaking in the joyful chaos while letting go of my fear of judgment. I connected the dots. This was my birthday, my day of reflection and renewal, a moment to cherish myself. I quietly slipped away from the laughter, easing into the stillness of the night. The cool air embraced me like an old friend, and suddenly, the stars above felt like jewels scattered across a velvet blanket. Each breath deepened my resolve, and as I walked away from the festivities, I felt a lightness in my chest, a whisper of liberation reminding me that it was perfectly acceptable to prioritize myself, even on a day meant for others. I might have left the party at midnight, but in that choice, I found a celebration of a different kind, one that honored the beautiful complexities of who I am. I smiled to myself, feeling weightless under the night sky. This was my moment, my quiet melody, and I was finally ready to dance to its tune. After slipping away, I made my way to a nearby park, where the gentle rustle of leaves seemed to echo the stillness I craved. I found a bench, bathed in the silvery light of the moon, and settled in to let the world around me fade into a soothing symphony. Each note of chirping crickets and the occasional rustle of a creature in the grass played in harmony with the heartbeats thumping softly within me, and I felt a profound gratitude for taking that step back. By the time I left the celebration behind, I didn't know how my friends would react to my decision. The next day, however, my phone buzzed with messages, inquiries, light-hearted teasing, and ultimately, warmth. They understood, even if they missed my presence in those closing moments, they recognized the importance of self-care, a lesson I had only begun to acknowledge in a room full of joyous chaos. One friend wrote, "Had a magical time, but I get it. Your vibe was floating somewhere out in the stars last night." That struck a chord with me. I realized I was not floating away from them, but soaring higher and connecting with something deeper. The messages continued, filled with laughter and quotes about celebrating oneself, inching me closer to a sense of belonging that felt authentic. As days passed, we gathered again, this time not in the thrall of a birthday celebration but under the sun for brunch. My absence on that eve became a conversation starter. They laughed as they recounted choosing my favorite cake, while I sipped on a cup of coffee, content within my soul. I shared my midnight retreat, and they listened, each friend reflecting their own moments of quiet solitude, times they wished to just breathe and embrace the essence of who they were. Through that shared understanding, I felt a bond deepen. It was an acknowledgement that being present also meant honoring the quieter parts of ourselves, our desires for solitude and introspection. Together, in that golden-hued morning glow, we celebrated not just a birthday, but the idea that each of us carries light that deserves nurturing, whether in a crowd or beneath the starry skies. In the end, leaving my own birthday party taught me that valuing my own needs isn't an act of selfishness, it's an extension of love to those around me. I discovered that reflection and renewal open pathways to deeper connections, not just with myself but with those I hold dear. As I watched the sun rise, splashing colors across the sky, I felt a bittersweet closure, a serene understanding that sometimes, the best gift we can give ourselves is the time to breathe and simply be. And as I stepped away into that soft dawn, I realized that every ending has its own beauty, just like every beginning. Sometimes, the most meaningful celebrations happen within, in the quiet spaces where we nurture our inner selves, ready to share our light with the world once again. It was the kind of day that felt ethereal, cloaked in a hazy blend of excitement and sweet nostalgia. The air was thick with the scent of fresh flowers and a hint of freshly brewed coffee from the stalls around the university quad, an intoxicating mixture that mingled with the laughter of my classmates. I had spent 4 long years inching toward this moment, surrounded by friends who felt like family. We had leaned on each other through long nights of study, countless cups of ramen, and enough inside jokes to fill a book. And that day, as I donned my cap and gown, I felt a swell of hope and a flicker of anxiety. The sun peeked out from behind lazy clouds, casting a warm glow that blanketed the campus in gold. My heart raced as I glanced around, soaking in the joy and pride in the eyes of friends and family, each one beaming with excitement for what lay ahead. But standing there, amid the cheers of my peers and the proud faces of my parents, I had no idea that the unfolding moment would forever change the trajectory of my life. I remembered just how my breath hitched when I spotted him in the crowd. Jake. My high school sweetheart, the one I had thought I would grow up and marry back when life felt like a fairy tale. He stood there, his deep brown eyes alight with a mix of love and certainty that seemed to flicker in the sunlight. He had always had this way about him, an unwavering belief that we were meant to be. I felt that pull, that familiar ache of nostalgia, tangled in all the emotions of that day. As we caught each other's gaze, I could sense the love radiating from him. It enveloped me like a warm blanket on a chilly night. I couldn't help but smile, the kind of smile that speaks volumes without saying a word. It felt so right, and yet, there was a tension simmering beneath the surface, like the anticipation before a summer storm. Little did I know that while everyone around us was celebrating a new beginning, Jake had something entirely different in mind, a twist of fate that would send me spiraling into a whirlwind of emotions. In that vibrant moment of joy, I didn't foresee what was about to transpire, and as I took a deep breath, I was blissfully unaware that the heart can often feel too heavily laden with expectation. The ceremony was beautiful, a tapestry woven with laughter and joy. The sun was setting just behind the stage, casting golden rays through the trees, illuminating the faces of my friends and family. I felt a flutter of excitement as I took my place amongst my peers, robed in our caps and gowns, each of us a little knot of anticipation and hope. The air was thick with a sense of achievement that you could almost taste. As the speeches wore on, I found myself scanning the crowd, searching for Jake's familiar face. His presence always had a way of grounding me when my mind began to wander into the realm of doubt. There he was, standing by the edge of the field, his dark hair tousled by the gentle breeze, that soft smile lighting up his features as he cheered my name. It was that smile that made everything feel right, like a safety net beneath me as I took a leap into the unknown. When it was finally my turn to walk across the stage and receive my diploma, a rush of pride washed over me. As I turned to face the audience, it was like I was seeing everything through a film of golden light. I took a moment to soak it all in, the applause, the cheers, the sparkling eyes of my loved ones. I was thrilled, bursting with dreams yet to unfold. But then, just as I turned toward my family and friends, I caught a glimpse of Jake again. He wasn't just smiling anymore, he looked intensely focused, determined even. My heart quickened, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. As the ceremony wrapped up, the excitement swirled around me, but I felt the ground beneath my feet shift a little. Something unknown was brewing. After the last speech, the crowd began to disperse. Families drifted towards one another, hugs and laughter blooming like wildflowers. I could feel my own heart thumping in my chest as Jake wove his way through the throng, his eyes locked onto mine. It felt thrilling and terrifying all at once, a mix of love and an unnameable tension that made me hold my breath, waiting. And then it happened. A hush fell over a small circle as he motioned for some friends to step back, creating a space just for us. The world around us dulled, and it was as if we were standing on a stage of our own. It was surreal, like time had warped itself into a bubble, isolating us from everything else. The love that had once felt like a comforting blanket now tightened around me like a noose. With the weight of the moment suspended in the air, he dropped to one knee, pulling out a small, velvet box that seemed to gleam with the intensity of 1,000 stars. My heart stopped. The world faded into a soft blur, and a mix of emotions thundered in me, a swell of love, panic, and an overwhelming rush of questions that echoed in my mind. Everyone around us fell silent, their faces hanging in excited expectation, and in that dizzying whirl of feelings, clarity hit me like a wave. I couldn't breathe. The moment felt vast, yet somehow impossibly small, all my hopes and dreams colliding in a single heartbeat. And as I stood there, heart racing, I realized something profound. I didn't want this. Not yet, not like this. And in that swirling sea of joy and anxiety, I heard my own voice whispering back, no. In the days that followed, life began its gentle unraveling. I thought I'd feel relief after saying no, but instead, an unexpected weight settled on my chest, heavy and persistent. I found myself staring into space during lunch breaks, the laughter of my friends fading into the backdrop as I replayed that moment over and over again. Every detail held the same intensity, the way his blue eyes had sparkled with hope, the collective intake of breath from the crowd, the sharp, cutting silence that followed my rejection. The sun rose and set calmly, as it always did, but within me, a storm brewed quietly. The little voices of doubt crept in at the most inconvenient times. Was I a fool for passing on something so seemingly beautiful? My mind turned over every tiny aspect of our relationship, the way he held my hand during walks, how he could make me laugh until I cried, and the intimate way he seemed to know exactly when I needed a comforting smile. But did that translate to forever? I busied myself with graduation festivities and the thrill of a new job on the horizon. Yet even in the midst of celebrations, the memory of that moment cast a shadow. I felt an unexpected chill every time someone brought up love and marriage, their cheerful speculation turning into a commentary on my life. "You must be so lucky," they'd exclaim, "how exciting." My world felt oddly disconnected from theirs, as if I were watching their lives through a foggy window. Each day I saw him, our interactions seemed to oscillate between warmth and tension. He was careful, as if navigating a fragile truce. He'd smile at me over coffee, and the laughter would flutter between us, but underneath it all, I sensed a brewing disappointment. I didn't want to hurt him, yet I was terrified that any sweet moment could turn sour with the weight of unspoken questions. I questioned if my no echoed through every corner of our dynamic. Did he wonder if I was uncertain about us, or if my heart belonged to another? One rainy afternoon, I found myself at the park where we shared countless memories, sunny picnics, unexpected adventures, and quiet moments that felt like home. I sat on our favorite bench, rain softly dappling the leaves overhead, and allowed myself to really feel it, the bizarre ache of loss for something I had never truly had. It was then that I realized yelling no at him was also saying no to my own fears. He had laid out a path, shimmering with uncertainty and promise, and I felt as if I had put a block in its way, halting a journey that could have been. Searching for clarity, I turned to journaling, typing my thoughts with flowing sincerity. There I captured my confusion, fear, and, somewhere beneath it all, an unshakable love for him. I wrote about my dreams, not only for romantic relationships but for my career, adventures, and self-discovery. The pen felt like my therapy, turning raw emotions into something tangible. While I understood his desire for a future, I began to focus on my own, opening a dialogue within myself. Each realization felt like peeling back layers I had once glued shut. I didn't want to marry out of obligation or fit into a mold. I wanted to do life with him on my own terms, whatever that might look like. One day, as I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink, a quiet sense of peace enveloped me. Maybe I didn't have to make any definitive choices right now. It was okay not to have life all figured out. All I needed in that moment was to embrace the uncertainty and let my heart guide me forward. As I settled into this new understanding of myself, I found that the world didn't feel as heavy anymore. Each day arrived with its own palette of colors, some bright, others muted, but all of them were mine to explore. I began to appreciate the beauty in the in-between spaces, the moments of calm that existed before a decision was made. That evening, as I sipped on my tea, I reflected on what had happened at graduation. I realized it was never really about the ring or the proposal. It was about the life we dreamed of together and how it was intricately woven with our individual journeys. I could see now that saying no was not a rejection of him but rather an affirmation of myself. It was a leap into the unknown, but one that felt necessary and liberating. I thought about all the times I had shifted my dreams to match someone else's vision for happiness. I had been conditioned to believe that my value was somehow tied to others' perceptions of success. But now, as I closed my eyes, I felt that conditioning loosening its grip. I was starting to define success for myself. It dawned on me that love, in its truest form, isn't about fitting neatly into a box. It blossoms in the freedom to be authentically yourself, to share your own passions, and to support your partner in their aspirations. I wanted us to evolve together, not bounded by roles or expectations, but in partnership as equals. The more I thought about it, the more excited I became about my own journey. I envisioned my career taking shape, full of unexpected adventures and connections. It felt like I was not just a passenger in my life, waiting for someone else to steer the ship, but the captain of my own vessel, ready to navigate storms and calm seas alike. I carried this realization into my nights, whispering affirmations of self-discovery to myself like mantras. I am enough. I will forge my own path. Letting go of immediate pressures, I found joy in each fleeting moment, the aroma of fresh coffee in the morning, the laughter of friends, the thrill of a new book. In the quiet stillness, I learned to love myself, imperfections and all. It felt like a gentle reminder from the universe that there is beauty in taking time to grow, to learn, and to understand what truly makes my heart sing. For the first time, I let go of the ticking clock and saw life not as a race to the altar, but as an open field full of possibilities, and there was nowhere I needed to rush to. And just like that, with every breath, I sank deeper into this newfound realization, welcoming the uncertainty ahead with a heart brimming with hope, ready to embrace whatever awaited me. The ceremony felt like a dream, a tapestry of emotions woven together, smiles, cheers, the proud faces of my family in the crowd. As I stood there, clad in my cap and gown, I was riding a wave of joy, not only because of the degree I'd earned but for the limitless horizon ahead of me. I clutched the diploma tightly, a symbol of my journey, my effort, my dreams. But then came the moment that would shift everything, his voice cutting through the applause, a soft but ringing clarity piercing my happy bubble. As he knelt there, the world around me faded, the cheers muted to an echo. The rings sparkled under the summer sun, and for a split second, I was frozen. This was the future he envisioned for us, a future I felt racing toward, but without me. My heart pounded, not out of excitement but from a sudden awareness of all the things I hadn't quite settled within myself yet. A voice in me, my voice, began to rise above the noise, whispering the truth I had buried beneath the weight of expectation. I wasn't ready. Even in that charged moment, everything went still. The realization washed over me as gently as a spring breeze. I was standing at a crossroads, wrapped in the warmth of my accomplishment, yet my heart ached for something else, something more profound than what was being offered. I glanced around, taking in the familiar faces, the vibrant colors of the day, the good wishes swirling like confetti in the air. This wasn't the end, it was a beginning. Taking a breath so deep it felt like it filled every corner of my being, I found clarity like sunlight breaking through clouds. My path, my story, my dreams, why should I rush to live someone else's version of happiness? I thought about the beauty of my journey, the late nights of studying, the friendships forged in laughter, the late-night talks about the future and where it might lead. It was mine to shape, and I no longer felt the urge to place my future in someone else's hands. So, I looked at him, mingled shock and confusion on his face as I softly said, "No, not now." And the words fell from my lips like a release, a gentle exhale after holding my breath far too long. Instead of a heartbreak or despair, I felt light, free. Free to dream, to explore, to grow into the person I was destined to be. With that simple word, I reclaimed my narrative. Tears brimmed in my eyes, but this time, they weren't from sadness. They sparkled with the promise of new beginnings. I was no longer bound by an idea of happiness that didn't fit. Instead, I stood surrounded by the beauty of possibility, stepping into my story with open arms. This was a celebration not only of my graduation but of my freedom to choose a path all my own, where every moment became ripe with potential. As I walked off that stage, I could still sense the warmth of the sun on my skin, the laughter of my friends ringing in my ears, and underneath it all, there pulsed a quiet resolution: I am enough, and my journey is just beginning. The weeks after graduation felt like a gentle unfolding of possibilities, each day a new page in my story, inviting me to fill it with my own ink. The echoes of that moment, the heartfelt proposal, the shocked silence, the love that shimmered in the air, remained with me, however. In the days that followed, I took the time to reflect on what had transpired. Daniel, though understandably hurt, reached out cautiously, wanting to talk. We met for coffee one afternoon, and I will never forget the mixture of vulnerability and strength in his gaze. It was there that I explained my vision for my future, one where adventure and self-discovery took precedence. I shared that I didn't want to tether myself to anyone else's expectations, not yet, not when I was still figuring out who I was without limitations. Surprisingly, instead of resentment, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over us. In that moment, Daniel understood, even if he didn't entirely agree. He spoke of his own dreams, ones he hadn't had the courage to pursue fully either. We talked until the sun dipped low, staining the sky with hues of orange and lavender, and I could see the intent for both of us to leave the door open, even if it meant walking separate paths. It was bittersweet, but the warmth we held in that cafe promised that our story wasn't ending, it was just diverging. Days turned into weeks, and soon summer rolled in like a breath of fresh air. I found myself exploring new passions: dancing, painting, writing. Each activity carried a heartbeat of joy, each experience a thread that wove itself into the tapestry of my new life. Friends who cheered for me during my graduation surrounded me, and together we created countless memories, building bonds that uplifted me in ways I had overlooked before. Daniel and I remain friends, sharing laughter and updates on our respective journeys. We celebrated each other's milestones, as different and individual as they were. In time, I realized that saying no had not only liberated me but also allowed both of us to grow in ways we hadn't anticipated. The love we shared didn't vanish; instead, it transformed into something beautifully platonic, like the quiet hum of a shared history as we moved forward separately but supportively. As autumn approached, I felt a sense of peace settle in my heart. The leaves danced their farewell, preparing to fall and make way for the new, just as I had done. I sometimes still thought about that proposal, the way it shook my world, but now, it was a gentle reminder to stay true to myself. Each day felt like a brushstroke on my canvas of life, vibrant and full of promise. I was no longer just a student with dreams, I was the artist of my own fate, shaping my journey, one filled with potential and self-love. And so, I embraced every rising sun, knowing that my story, still unwritten, would be a tapestry of moments vibrant and authentic. As I drifted off to sleep each night, I did so with a heart full of hope, wrapping myself in the warmth of the possibilities yet to come. In those quiet moments before sleep, I found solace in the truth that saying no to one path can open countless others. Life, like autumn leaves, is meant to fall away and be reborn, it's all a part of the journey. And with each new dawn, I remember that my heart knows the way, guiding me toward all that is meant for me. It's late, and the world outside my window is wrapped in a quiet stillness, the kind that makes everything feel a little more distant, a little more introspective. The moonlight filters through the thin curtains, casting a gentle glow across my room. I sit curled up on the edge of my bed, the soft quilt beneath me heavy with nostalgia and warmth. I can hear the faint rustle of leaves swaying in the night breeze, merging with the soft hum of the radiator, offering a comforting rhythm, a balm for my thoughts. I'm Ava, a 30-something dreamer navigating the familiar chaos of life in a buzzing city that never seems to sleep. Maybe it's the echoing laughter from a nearby cafe or the distant sound of a saxophone playing jazz that brings a bittersweet smile to my face. I live with my partner, Matthew, who is, on most days, the love of my life. The kind of person who brightens the room without effort, whose laugh is contagious, and who, when he speaks, has a way of weaving words that draws everyone in. We've built a comfortable little bubble, cocooned in a small apartment filled with mismatched furniture and an abundance of houseplants that thrive under our care. But tonight, the air feels thick, heavy with an unspoken distance that has settled between us, a silent acknowledgement of the growing chasm I've created. I don't know when it started, really. Maybe it was gradual, like the gentle fading of daylight into dusk, or maybe it was a sudden realization, I'm not quite sure. It feels like I've quietly slipped away, retreating into the shadows of my own mind while he goes about the routine we once shared so effortlessly. At first, it was small things, the little moments of connection I let fade, the lingering hugs that turned into polite pats on the back. With each passing day, I busied myself with everything except what mattered most, us. I found solace in solitude, losing myself in the comfort of my books, the worlds within them more appealing than the quiet conversations we had grown accustomed to. And now, here I sit, asking myself if maybe, just maybe, he hasn't noticed yet. As I sip my warm chamomile tea, I can taste hints of honey and nostalgia, reminding me of simpler times filled with laughter and late-night talks beneath the stars. The realization settles, I don't want to feel this way, but I'm stuck in a routine of my own making, unable to break free. I sigh, the sound carrying all the unspoken thoughts swirling within me. Perhaps, with the right words, I might find my way back to a love that feels a little more vivid. Or perhaps I'm too far gone, lost in the quiet of this unintentional retreat. It was a chilly Friday evening, the kind that wraps around you like a soft blanket, inviting you to stay in and escape the world outside. I had just returned from work, my mind still tangled with thoughts of deadlines and meetings. I dropped my bag by the door and inhaled deeply, letting the comforting aroma of home wash over me. It felt like a sigh of relief. He was already in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. There was something routine yet cozy about the scene, the soft sounds of the knife against the cutting board, the faint sizzle from the pan. I smiled, expecting our usual banter, the easy conversation that would fill the space while we cooked together. But as I leaned against the counter, my smile faded a little. He didn't look up. His whole attention was consumed by the task in front of him, and I stood there, feeling like a phantom in my own home. I cleared my throat, trying to interject some warmth into the silence. "Smells great. What are you making?" But he merely nodded, still focused on his work. "Just stir-fry," he replied absent-mindedly, almost as an afterthought. A wave of disappointment washed over me. It felt like a tiny crack had formed in our shared world, one that seemed to deepen with each passing moment of silence. I offered my help, but he waved me off, insisting he had it covered. I could feel the space between us stretching, not in a dramatic, rift-like way but in the gentle, subtle manner that comes from familiarity turning into complacency. I moved to the living room, hoping to transition into my usual spot on the couch with a book. As I settled in, the words on the page blurred, and the thoughts in my head became louder. I gazed at the clock, its hands moving too fast, ticking away the moments in which I felt invisible. Did he even notice I was gone? It struck me then, a pang of realization that I had been retreating for weeks, quietly letting the joy in our relationship slip through my fingers like sand. I took a sip of my chamomile tea, letting its warmth seep into my bones. Perhaps he hadn't noticed, but I certainly felt it, the slow drift, the conversation replaced by silence. That moment, standing alone in the kitchen like a whisper lost in the air, instigated a realization that I was no longer the vibrant partner he shared his days with. I was fading, not through any grand act of defiance, but simply by letting quietness take residence where laughter used to roam free. As days turned into weeks, I found myself seeking solace in the routines I once cherished but now felt like shrouded reminders of what we used to share. Mornings blurred into afternoons, and I reveled in the small acts that seemed to slip by unnoticed. I began brewing my tea in silence, sipping it while watching the sun spill golden light across the living room's floor. The warmth of the tea felt a little more comforting than the coldness creeping in where his laughter used to echo. I made little changes, settling into a chair in the corner instead of the couch we once shared. Sometimes, I grabbed a book I had been meaning to read, losing myself in characters that felt more vibrant than my own unvoiced feelings. I guess I was hoping one of them would somehow unlock the part of me that still craved connection, that still wished to be seen. But they never quite managed to fill the void. Late evenings carried a stillness that hummed with both familiarity and loneliness. He'd come home, toss his keys on the counter, and settle into his routine as if everything was just as it had always been. The only sound disrupting the evening lull was the rustle of pages turning, the sporadic tap of my pencil, marking thoughts in my journal, thoughts I didn't dare share. Every time he asked if I was okay, I'd muster a smile and throw a soft "yeah, just tired," into the air, watching it flutter away like a feather caught in a gentle breeze. I found myself whispering to the moon, hoping it might carry my unspoken words far and wide. Will he notice? I pondered as I penned my emotions in the faint glow of my bedside lamp. How could I have let things drift so far? I didn't want to end things or make a scene. I was merely seeking an escape from the feeling of being undervalued, hoping he'd notice the space I now occupied in our shared world and in his heart. One evening, I broke the unsaid and gestured toward the distant hum of the TV. "Did you see that show about couples?" I asked, my heart nearly thudding in my chest. He paused for a moment, then replied, his eyes still glued to the screen. "Vaguely. I think I caught a glimpse." His indifference cut deeper than I anticipated, and a bittersweet sigh escaped my lips, merging seamlessly with the rhythm of the night. It was then I noticed small things, a forgotten birthday, a question left unanswered, a joke that sank without a trace. Each little moment felt like another bead slipping off an already frayed bracelet. And there I was, collecting them, wondering if I cared enough to repair it, or if I was ready to let it go, all while he continued to navigate his day-to-day oblivious to my quiet exodus. I would catch glimpses of him as I sat on the edge of my thoughts, his laughter echoing with friends over video calls, his comfortable sighs as he sunk into the couch, his concentration while he indulged in his projects. He seemed so alive and vibrant, and yet there remained an unbridgeable distance between us. A tender ache settled heavily in my chest. By now, it had become a gentle exploration, this quiet quitting, a soft surrender rather than a break. I was learning to breathe alone, to sit with my thoughts and feelings that had previously been shared. The lines began to blur between hurting and healing. If he could move through life without noticing my absence, what did that say about the space I thought I occupied in his heart? While I felt a flicker of pain with each passing day, I also began to understand that sometimes solitude carries its own subtle strength. And somehow, within the ebb and flow of this unspooling situation, I found a quiet sort of peace amidst the ache, a bittersweet retreat into myself, a chance to explore who I was outside of the comforting chaos we had once created together. Reflection: it's funny how stepping back can offer such clear perspectives. In those quiet moments of solitude, I started to peel back layers I didn't even know I had. I always thought love was about constant presence, about intertwining lives and shared experiences. But now, here I was, witnessing something different, a profound lesson in what it means to truly be alone, without losing the essence of who I am. There were nights when I found myself curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, lost in a book or a movie that made my heart swell. I'd sometimes look over at the empty space beside me and feel that familiar twinge of longing. But then something remarkable would happen, the image of me and my own joy would flash brighter than any memory of us. I began to realize how often I had hidden behind the curtain of our relationship, a supporting cast in a play that was beautifully tragic. It wasn't just about him not noticing my quiet departure, it was about me not noticing how I'd blurred into the background of my own life. In these gentle awakenings, I understood that my worth isn't tied to another person's recognition of my absence. I learned to embrace the silence, to fill it with dreams, passions, and thoughts that had been stifled amidst our once shared noise. Whether it was staring at the stars on a clear night or getting lost in playlists that reflected my emotions, each experience started to become an act of self-love, a reclamation of my narrative. Some days, I still felt the ache, a hollowness that wanted to echo with memories. But then there were moments of warmth, like laughter shared with an old friend, or the thrill of discovering a new hobby, painting the world in all its shades once more. The more I explored this uncharted territory of selfhood, the more I recognized the strength in my vulnerability. This solitude was not a punishment, it was a gentle invitation to rediscover my essence, and negotiate a new relationship with myself, one that was built on understanding and kindness. So here I am, still quietly withdrawing, but also evolving, allowing my heart to bloom in spaces I had long neglected. I'm not simply waiting for him to notice, because now, I'm learning to really notice myself. And maybe, just maybe, that realization would be the first step toward loving not only others but the beautiful, resilient soul I see when I reflect. One afternoon, as the golden sunlight streamed through my window, I found myself sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by paint-splattered canvases and half-finished projects. I had unleashed a whirlwind of colors, bold blues, vibrant yellows, and soft pinks, each stroke a testament to my resurgence. I had spent years blending into the background, living in shades of gray, but here, in this cozy corner of my home, I felt alive, a kaleidoscope of emotions unfurling within me. That's when it struck me. As I dipped my brush into a fresh pot of emerald green, my heart felt light, almost airy. I paused, watching the bristles dance over the canvas, and in that small moment, I understood, I was making a choice. It wasn't about drawing lines or yelling out my grievances, it was about crafting my own narrative, one where I was the author of my own joy. I breathed in deeply, letting the aroma of paint and fresh coffee fill my lungs. I envisioned this new path, a path of kindness, not just towards myself but towards my memories of him too. There was a calm in accepting that he might never notice my quiet withdrawal, but that didn't mean I had to linger in the shadows. I could step into my own light. I set my brush down and picked up my phone, scrolling through my list of saved articles on self-love. I smiled fondly at a piece titled The Art of Letting Go. The title resonated in a way it hadn't before. Letting go, it sounded daunting and yet so peaceful. It was about releasing the weight of expectation, the burden of waiting for someone else to affirm my worth. So, I took a tiny step, a small yet significant push against the currents of doubt that had long made their home in my heart. I sent him a simple message, not a plea for attention or a declaration of the withdrawal I was quietly embracing, but a light-hearted picture of my latest piece, colors swirling vibrantly across the canvas. "Look what I created today," I typed, my fingers fluttering across the screen. A breath of fresh air escaped my lips as I hit send. In that moment, I wasn't waitlisting for an acknowledgement. I was simply sharing a piece of myself, shedding the need for validation. I felt my heart expand. Each beat was a gentle reminder that I, too, deserved to celebrate my little victories without the crutch of someone else's recognition. It was a moment that tasted of freedom. I wanted him to see that I was blooming, but even if he didn't, I was ready to thrive on my own. And that's when I felt the weight lift, a soft sigh escaping my lips as I curled back into my creative nest. I closed my eyes, letting go of the quiet angst I had held for so long. I was forging a new connection, not one of dependence, but a bond with myself that brimmed with forgiveness and joy. With each stroke of my brush, I began to reclaim my life's narrative, and it felt like a rebirth. Outcome: as days turned into weeks, the silence in our relationship became a soft comfort, a warm blanket rather than a chilling void. I poured my energy into rediscovering the joy of my own company, and with each moment spent alone, I felt more assured in this newfound independence. It was strange, in a way, how easy it was to let go of the expectation that he might notice my absence, that he might reach out in concern or, perhaps, in acknowledgement of the slight distance I had created. He didn't. Not really, anyway. There were casual texts asking if I was still on for our usual Friday night plans, moments I let slip away like grains of sand. At first, it tugged at my heart, the faint echo of longing for our shared laughter and the small joys we once relished. But then the truth settled in. I had moved beyond just wanting him to notice. I was nurturing a flame within me, a desire to grow that shone brighter than the need for approval. The more I embraced this self-acceptance, the clearer my path became. Old paintings believed to be long forgotten found their way into the light, colors brighter, strokes bolder. I even began to showcase my art at a local cafe. The thrill of seeing people moved by my creations filled my soul, replenishing it in ways I hadn't anticipated. I realized that happiness is often birthed in the quiet spaces we create for ourselves. Occasionally, I would receive a message from him, delightful and mundane, but each time I answered with the warmth of grace rather than the tether of attachment. It was liberating to exist beyond the realm of needing him to validate my choices or my identity. I could finally breathe. In the end, we drifted into different currents. There was a bittersweetness to it, like a gentle sigh of acceptance. I think he sensed the shift, felt the distance, but neither of us was equipped to navigate it. I suppose love can sometimes turn into a soft runway for our dreams, guiding us towards the skies we yearn to explore. The seasons passed. The friendship we once cherished faded gently into a fond memory, leaving me with a heart open to new connections, unfettered and hopeful. As I drifted off to sleep each night, I whispered words of gratitude to the universe, both for the love that was and the love that was yet to bloom. I had quietly quit our relationship, but in doing so, I found a new one, blossoming within myself, wholeheartedly embracing the beauty of being alone yet not lonely. And in that solitude, I learned I was never truly abandoned. I was simply free. In the quiet corners of my heart, I realized that sometimes letting go creates space for the deeper love we truly deserve. It's in our solitude that we discover the kind of companionship only we can bring to ourselves. As I embrace this newfound freedom, I am reminded that sometimes, the best way to find love is to first learn what it means to love oneself.